Welcome to Down Underworld Denizens, Episode 5.
And we are live here at the Great Barrier Biff II. This is a Blood Bowl tournament on a tropical island, a Great Keppel Island, and I am actually currently observing a massive scrum on the top of the table here between two absolute giants of the game, Mr. Ken Dunford and Mr. Roy Quilty, aka Orc Rock, and Mr. Clawpom, Yeah, there is a mad scramble for the ball. They might be too intensely into this game to say too much, but it's currently Ken's turn, so I'm going to chat with Roy briefly. Roy, how does it feel to be top of Great Barrier Biff II in Game 4?
Feels damn good, Bad. Damn good.
And how are your Pirates faring?
Quite well, actually. Quite well. Yeah, they're doing well for me at the moment. I can't complain.
And shout out, what's been your strategy in terms of your skills development on your team?
Just to hurt people.
So brutal Skaven, I hear.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, he definitely is the hunt. He has been fouling a fair bit. I'm going to move on. And here we have Roy's son, Kiltane, who's also kind of in the top half of the table playing our very own Wilts. Wilts, say good day.
Hey, everyone.
And Wilts had a bit of a shocker yesterday when he was actually on the top table and lost something like 3 of his key Chaos Chosen players in all of 2 turns. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's happening again here too.
Oh dear. So, fill us in. How's your experience been overall?
It's been great. I've played against people I haven't played before. Really tight games. Really made me think a lot, and hopefully I'm learning something as we go.
And his opponent is Kiltane Quilty, whose NAF name is unsurprisingly Kiltane. How are you finding Great Barrier Biff II?
Oh, great. It's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, and we've heard of Kiltane on Down Underworld Denizens, of course, went down to the Big V and unseated James Russell Wills. You got a shout out in episode 3 as a result of that. So, all right, and I'm going to keep moving. We've got Lukey Honeybrook down here. He's also he's been sporting our one and only elf team. I've just got a rules query here. Hold on a moment. And as I was chatting, Luke is our one and only elf coach here at Great Barrier Biff II. How have the Dark Elves held themselves?
Really good, but I'm getting a lot of casualties against me. So, yeah.
So how have you found starting with not very many skills but developing as you go?
I really like it because, you plan for your next game and, everyone likes more skills. So game after game it just keeps getting better.
And Great Barrier Biff II has a bit of a piratical theme, and so this is another one of our pirate-themed teams. None other than our own Gerbil Warner. Warner, how are you finding the tournament overall?
Yeah, it's been great so far. Great turnout, great venue, great games.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, I hear your Skaven haven't been scoring nearly enough touchdowns and been too busy going into the dead and injured bin. Is this correct?
Fairly correct. However, they have managed to out-casually both Shambling Undead and Blackhawks. I don't know how. They didn't outscore them, but yeah, where the dice mattered, they didn't turn out okay for me. So
maybe you're playing them wrong. Just a suggestion. And over here we've got a gerbil off. We've got none other than our Stewie and our Millsy having a local league derby here. How's it going, Millsy?
It's going terrible. I rolled a 12 on the kickoff table and got 3 of my Blocksaurus who were on the line placed stunned. So Stewie's all over me now.
Good to hear, Stewie. How are you finding it?
Oh, mate, having a ball over here. What better place to be on Great Keppel Island, ocean views, playing Blood Bowl. Feel like pirates, but I'm not playing like a pirate. But anyway, having fun.
Well, maybe you are. Maybe a pirate who's had a bit too many of the rum rations. And I'm here on our second top table where we've got a Skaven versus Slanoff here. None other than Stratford from episode 2. How's it going?
It's going all right so far. Having a little bit of trouble with the slam. They seem to be able to get the ball back pretty quick, so I'm putting pressure on him. Not too bad, though.
Yeah, excellent. And opposite him is Dmitry Klemenko, NAF name Lack of Cheese. However, I think there's plenty of cheese around given you're playing against Skaven. How goes your slam?
Yeah, so I chose to receive, which I usually kick. And this time I chose to receive, and I think I got a bit greedy, and the ball went like way back in my touchdown line, and I had like one player there to recover it. But my dice came through, so I might have it back again. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do have to say, it is a pirate themed. I'm not sure what these Star Wars miniatures are doing here, but never mind.
I feel like Star Wars has plenty of pirates. They're space pirates.
I guess that's fair. I'm here with Zach from our Down Underworld draft. Zach, your vampires are looking a little thin on the ground. What's happening?
Getting absolutely minced by dwarves. I did manage to break their cage, steal their ball, and then the runner fell over after a re-roll. If I had got it, that would have been a touchdown, but I've got 4 in the casualty bin, 2 in the knockouts, including one vampire blocker in the casualty, 1 vampire blocker blitzer in the knockout. There is also 2 vampires remaining on the pitch that are on the ground. One's about to be fouled out of the game, I am sure of it. If he doesn't, he is a bad man.
And
by the way, that's turn 4.
and opposite him is Callan playing dwarves. Callan, you're the only dwarf coach. How have you found your experience at Great Barrier Biff II?
It's a lot. I've enjoyed it a bit more than playing my halflings in my first tournament at the Slam. But I think this is more my style of team as opposed to the halflings. I've always been a bit of a run forward and smash people with all my armies in any game that I play. So it's been running a bit better for me, I think.
Yeah, and this is your second tournament, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. It is second.
So tell us, how have you found the overall experience being at Great Barrier Biff II?
I love the scenery. Just for the listeners, when we're sitting out here, we're looking over the islands and see it's great. I'm just sitting here having fun playing Blood Bowl, rolling some dice and sinking some beers too. That's a great experience.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to keep moving, and I'm having a look here. We've got Dave Lieber, or Liebs, sometimes he's known as, with his corn against Dr. Nick Carr with his Black Orcs. Nick, how are you going with your Black Orcs this tournament? I do love their tri-corner hats.
Look, honestly, I had the perfect anti-frenzy setup with guard everywhere on a Black Hawk team. Dave was sweating so hard that in the setup he took 10 minutes to even think about where to put his guys, and then a cannonball came down and knocked half my team out, and then he just walked through. So if it wasn't for the cannonball, he was all at sea, shall we say, to use a nautical theme, and it just, unfortunately, I got keel hauled.
And yeah, Lebo, would you concur with that summary of the game so far?
Look, it's with Frenzy and then a whole bunch of guard on his team. It's pretty tough for early on a Sunday morning, so I think I need a second coffee. But that cannonball is a lifesaver. So praise Nuffle.
All right, best of luck for the rest of the game.
So what's up next?
I don't know. Let's cut this bit. All right. I just want to.
Just for you, Babs, that bit stays in.
Yeah. Actually, let me jump in and say a little piece. Hey guys, in Down Underworld Denizens episode 1, we actually took the time to have an acknowledgement of country, and last weekend we were on Great Keppel Island. And so I just really like to have a bit of a formal acknowledgement of country that we really want to honour the Indigenous elders of the Wapabara people, who are the traditional custodians of Great Keppel Island. Their past is an absolute tragedy. We in Blood Bowl and other sports-related tabletop miniature board games often, find it a bit hilarious when, Rum-ble Rock Belly goes and eats half the stadium and its owners. But I mean, obviously that's only fantasy. That's not true history. But the Wapabara people did suffer an absolute tragedy in that when that was handed over to private ownership, the owner of that land rounded up all the Indigenous people, took them into a cave and shot them all. So Australia history is littered with tragedy, and I just really like to, really acknowledge and honour the Woppa people. And I think that our Queensland State Government's done a really great thing in formally giving some say to the Woppa people about what happens to the future of Great Keppel Island. I think that's a fantastic gesture of acknowledgement of the horrors of the past and moving forward so that they are certainly never repeated or at any place whatsoever. Millsy.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you did last weekend.
What did I do last weekend? I woke up at some ridiculous hour in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, to travel up to Gladstone to meet up with Stewie and Jacob. And then we travelled up to Yeppoon so we could catch the early ferry across to Great Keppel Island. We were the early raiding party, as it was, to just get things set and ready to go for the beach party rumble and the Great Barrier Biff. I held the beach party rumble. It ended up going over 2 nights. Just a little unfortunate with the timing of the ferry coming in, and then we just had to wait for everyone to get off the ferry and get to their rooms and so on. So
there was a bit of a mix-up with one of the rooms.
Underway.
There was a bit of a mix-up with one of the rooms. So I think Zach Coburg wasn't quite sure which room to be in. We got it sorted eventually, but it was a bit of a delay.
Yeah, and look, it wasn't a problem for everyone, and I, sort of went round and asked everyone and said, "Hey, we're here for the whole weekend. Do you just want to do the 3rd game tomorrow night?" And unanimously, everyone said yes. So, the beach party rumble was run over 2 days. My little gimmick with it was having a standard lineman, which we recorded star player points for. He was called the Kahuna, and the biggest prize was awarded to the person who could get the most star player points, and they were the big Kahuna, of which that big Kahuna will now become a star player for next year. We'll get a miniature sculpted up, and I was just surprised at how well people took to it. You heard it going the whole time. They're yelling out, "Oh, my Kahuna just scored a touchdown. My Kahuna did this." And they really got into that theme of it. So I was just stoked with that. And as my first tournament, I think we had 22 coaches. So I was wrapped.
Yeah, there was a bit of a not a casualty bin, but there was a bit of a decline in each round, wasn't there? There was coaches pulled out for a couple of different reasons. Anything you want to comment about that?
Yeah, like we were able to soldier on with it. One of the things that I did was I put myself in as a ringer. So if one coach pulled out, I could jump in and take their place. If 2 coaches pulled out, I wouldn't have to. But, it was a long day, and it was 31 degrees, I think it was, probably even more than that. So the sun was out. It was a really hot day. Yeah, some people pretty tired after that, but we managed to sneak on through, and we finished round 3 with 18 players. So we did have a few drop, but the competition was still as fierce and as fun as the first 2 games.
Yeah, and I think there's a variety of reasons for the attrition. Like, I know one coach, it was just their back playing up after being on the boat on the way over, and they just needed to just rest that for the following day. And I think there was another coach for whom they just thought, look, I don't want to burn myself out. I really want to focus on the 2-day tournament. Don't know why, because the beach party rumble was the big event, but they decided to.
It was the big main event, yeah.
Yeah, they just decided to pull out to save themselves for the following 2 days. But I thought it went really, really well. I really loved it. I think I'm still getting my head around the beach bowl rules. I must confess, I don't actually think I played a single practice game before rocking up, and I think it showed a little. But what do you? One of the things I thought was really quite unique was the 4+ go for it. All you go for it's for 4+. That was a rule that you introduced, and I think you introduced that, and then the NAF got wind of what you were doing and decided to adopt something similar.
I played some practice games last year just to test out the rule set, and I took Skaven because I thought, okay, Skaven are going to be fast, and I ended up doing 3 one-turn touchdowns in a row. Stewie kicked to me. I did a one-turner. I kicked to him. He dropped the ball. I ran through, picked it up in one-turner. End of half. He kicked to me in the second half and I one-turned it. No, I apologised to Stewie. I said, but really what I'm doing here is trying to fix these rules. And we ummed and ahed over it and thought, what can we do? And eventually I came up with it and said, let's just make rushes 50-50. So it's a 4+. So then I submitted my tournament pack to the NAF, and 2 weeks later, they came out with 3+. So I don't know whether they're watching me or great minds think alike. And I did have another rule where the injury table disregarded stunting or disregarded thick skull or anything like that. It was just a straight injury table for every player, and that's also in the latest NAF Beachborough rules. So hopefully they're listening to me, and I've made a difference.
I think they must have had a bit of a look at your rules back if those two things were both adopted. I must admit, I played my first game using regular Blood Bowl rules for my skinks, and only in game 2 did I twig that, actually, no, hang on a minute, they don't have, the stunty isn't +1 to injury in this.
So, Babs, you had a fairly large tournament whilst we were over there as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, although obviously I was tournament organizer, so I didn't play. I'm interested to hear, Wilts, you've been a little quiet. Tell us a little bit about your Great Barrier Biff II tournament experience.
Yeah, so Friday night, obviously, after being on the ferry and driving off into darkness and before we got to the beach on the other end, there's a couple of guys making jokes about beach landings, hiking up the sand. So Friday night we got a couple of games running. Every game I played was played in a great spirit. We're just having a good time together more than actually competing. And so that set the tone for the whole weekend, and it made it a really great experience overall. And for the Great Barrier Biff itself, we had some really good tough games, and we had some really good tough competition between coaches. But at the end of the day, it's all about the playing it in the right spirit, having a great time, making new friends, and catching up with old friends.
Yeah, look, I mean, we absolutely could not have asked for better weather. Like, I felt incredibly blessed to have absolute textbook, postcard weather, really, for the whole weekend. And I think that, influenced people's attitude too. Like, everybody just was having a great time. I'm a veteran of running tournaments. I've been running tournaments since 2002. And I've run big tournaments. My biggest tournament I ran, I think, was from memory, CanCon 2006, which was 72 coaches in size. And I think the Great Barrier Biff II has got to eclipse that in terms of overall tournament experience. I think it was just an absolute keystone event, and I think it was brilliant. And certainly the feedback I've had has been incredibly positive. And I think there are a few little minor things I want to adjust. So I'm not content to just roll it over and do the same thing next time. But I do think we had an absolutely amazing time. One amazing little anecdote that occurred is on the Friday night, Andrew Laidlaw-Jones was chatting to just some guy. And it turned out that guy is the distributor of Army Painter and Vallejo paints into Australia. He's based in Newcastle, and he was there for a holiday. Well, we got chatting on the Saturday. He came to have another chat. And by the Sunday afternoon, he was handing out an encouragement award. And not just any encouragement award, it was a mega pack of Army Painter paints and a pack of various glues to assemble, to put, basing stuff on your bases. To the value of something like $460. So we didn't even know about that until the Saturday morning. Wow, what a prize. And we gave that up to a one and only coach from Mackay. So that was great. It was his first tournament. Mate, I think it's going to be hard for him to top tournament experience than that. But and that's Zach Coburg, who we talked about being a little unsure of which of the rooms he was going to be staying in that night. But but we had coaches from Cairns, coaches from Townsville, coaches from Mackay, coaches from Rockhampton, Gladstone, Bundaberg, coaches from the Sunshine Coast, coaches from Brisbane and Ipswich. So, what I can't be happier with the spread of coaches we got along to the event. That was brilliant. There were a few dropouts, but most of those guys were happy to, donate their registration costs to the tournament, and that meant we had some fantastic prizes on the prize pool table, which meant everybody got something they could go home with, and it was much better than I was initially expecting as a result. So even though there were a few dropouts and that was disappointing, the upside to that was an amazing, amazing prize pool. And to add to the already top-notch swag we got, I can't complain. I really can't. What about you, Millsy? What did you think?
Look, it wasn't just the tournament; it was the entire experience for the whole weekend. Like, we were all there. Like, our big Blood Bowl family was there. Their family was there too. There were wives and children, and to stay in the same area, in the same resort, and we'd go out and sit out and we'd have lunch with all the rest of them as well. It wasn't just the tournament playing the Blood Bowl. It was the entire experience. And I've got to think from your point of view, like going into the organising of that, just the amount of organising you've had to do, because you had to book ferries, you had to book accommodation, you had to cook meat, get meal packages up and running. So every single person I spoke to is ready to come back next year or 2026, whenever we hold the next one. Every single one of them. They're all just super stoked for it and just cannot wait. So it's big hats off to you. I know I've joked about it saying the Beach Party Rumble was the major event all the time, but mine was small time, and mine wouldn't have got off the ground if it wasn't for what you put into it. So, and the Queensland Blood Bowl community owes you a debt of gratitude, I think.
Oh, that's very kind. I just do it to benefit, what we do and what we love, and I think one of my things I was very proud of is how well our swag turned out. Obviously, Great Barrier Biff II ended up with some miniature storage cases, and in fact, every single one of those miniature storage cases is now spoken for. There's none left. I'm sorry. So, if you're listening to this podcast and wondering whether you can get a storage case, I'm sorry, there are none left. But there are Beach Party Rumble pitches still available, and I have to say I was pretty happy with the 2 mil neoprene. I was very interested to have a bit of a look at the quality that we got, and I think I'm happy. I'm really pleased with it.
I am stoked with it, and so is everybody else that picked one up. And we talked about this before. The beauty of the neoprene is you put it down and it does not move. You put your cardboard pitch or your whatever pitches on the board on the table, and they can move around slightly. That neoprene just holds it there. You're slamming a dice cup into it. You're not making loud sounds, and just the quality of it was fantastic. And if any of our listeners do want to get a hold of one of those, we do have excess stock. They're $25 dues, including postage. Oh, sorry, not including postage. I'll have to pay the postage on top of that as well. But if you want to get any of those, just jump onto our Facebook page and hit us up with a message, and we'll get some details off you and give to you.
Yeah, although in a breaking news, we Mills and I have had a little bit of chat, and if you're planning to run a beach bowl tournament and you want some of these Beach Party Rumble pitches for your tournament, we'll do you a special deal if you order 10 pitches or more. So just reach out to us. If you want to run Beach Bowl, we'll look after you. Get us a message, but minimum order of 10.
Yeah, and we can post worldwide. It just costs a little bit more, but that's available for all of our listeners.
Yeah, that is true. Although that said, neoprene is heavy, so postage won't be as inexpensive as you might think. All right, I think we're going to finish off and cross now to the first of two focuses on different areas of Australian Blood Bowl.
Hey, this is Welts, just giving a big shout out to the Ipswich Blood Bowl League Organising Committee, also known as The Dudes. We've got our special guests on today, Liam, Anthony, and Zach. How's it going, guys?
Good to be here.
Yeah, good. How's yourself?
Yeah, so there's been a rebranding. Obviously in Queensland there's been a little bit of Blood Bowl history in Ipswich. Liam, were you involved in the first Blood as Low?
That would have been pre-pandemic, so no.
Okay, but there was one. What do we know about it? Zach, Anthony, jump in if you
I
know
think,
anything.
well, to be honest, I think Anthony should take control of this one because if I remember correctly, a much younger version of me came to him with a set of goblins and didn't know how to play Blood Bowl. So why don't you take it away, Anthony?
Oh, nothing like a bit of pressure, but yeah, sure. So Blood was done with what was the shop called? Save Point Games, and he run Save Point Games. So we decided to do Ipswich Ski instead now.
Yeah, so obviously there was a pre-pandemic Blood as Low, but it wasn't a NAF run tournament, as I understand it. Can somebody verify that?
Yeah, so back in that stage, we sort of were a bit of on a founding stage. None of the Ipswich side, well, there are a couple, but we hadn't really dabbled in the tournament scene, the Queensland tournament scene, and so that all came a little bit later, and with that a big push after we were formally introduced to yourself, Babs.
Yeah, but obviously there was a formal tournament that was held. It just wasn't an NAF tournament, and so it kind of got lost in the ether a bit in terms of the formal records of what's going on in terms of tournaments. And then obviously, there was a bit of a resurgence post Nurgle's blessings, and Blood as Low 2023 came along, and I've talked about it on the podcast a fair bit. Liam put his hand to the tiller and was the lead. And so, Liam, tell us a bit about the journey between Blood as Low 2023 and now.
So, as Anthony mentioned, the store that owned the rights to the name Blood as Low Cup closed up their shop front early in the year, thanks to the lovely state of the economy in some parts of the state, including Ipswich. And that may have been a bit of a blessing in disguise because it stopped a lot of the background politics that was kind of splitting the Blood Bowl community in Ipswich at the point. So it's actually made Blood Bowl come back stronger in the area as a result, and the Ipswich Ski is kind of born out of that, as opposed to being a continuation of what was there originally.
So it's kind of a phoenix, is that what you're saying? It's rising from the ashes of Blood as Low.
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so, I really appreciated watching you guys form the Ipswich Blood Bowl Association, and tell us a little tiny smidge about that local league. I hear it's pretty big. I saw a little post about round 6 being delayed as your current host for rounds is changing venue. Yeah, fill us a little bit in on all that.
It's got 40 coaches. I think we've only had one have to drop out due to life stuff, so it's still going very strong after we're in our 6th round. We've had a bit of a venue change happening because of a change of location of the primary place that we're playing out of, and just because of the disruption there, we've had to extend the current round for a week, but otherwise we've kept up to the fortnightly schedule. Anthony's pretty strict on that. He could probably tell you just how strict he is if he wants.
Yeah, there's no give.
No give, only gives.
Yeah. Someone was in hospital and didn't get a pass, so
wow.
Yeah,
absolutely. Did they get a hospital pass? Ching. Anyway. So 40 coaches, is that the final number? I'm really interested actually because on Down Underworld Denizens we heard about the Sydney Blood Bowl League, which has 40 coaches, and James Russell Wills in episode 3 told us that back in the day, Babel, or the Brisbane area Blood Bowl League, had the biggest league in the country, and it looks like you're certainly up there again. So is it 40 flat?
Yeah, 40 and 4 divisions of 10.
Yeah, right. And do you know if there's interest bubbling around for joining in next season?
So that, I think I can take over there in that one. The thing that scared me a little bit is that we started with 40 coaches, and in the first 3 weeks, I had people coming out of the woodworks. Oh, you guys are doing Blood Bowl. When's the next season? I want to join up. Oh, what are you guys up to? Oh, you guys are playing Blood Bowl. I remember when I used to play back in, first edition. When is the next season coming up?
Are you going to
It's
allow
just one of
cardboard
those.
standees from first edition?
And it's you're getting. They just sort of like because the local scene down at Epic. I still remember with avid excitement the first Thursday of round one. We had 6 or 7 tables of Blood Bowl, wasn't it? Playing matches being played, and like people were coming in, people were talking about Blood Bowl. The air was the sort of air you would get in a tournament. It was fantastic, and it really has inspired, if anything else, that the Queensland scene is definitely buzzing, and we want to capture that, especially now, and channel that into the Ipswichki.
Yeah, which is a pretty good segue. Other than obviously just to catch the point that, we heard about the demise of Safe Point Games, and it's just a really good opportunity for Down Underworld denizens to say, hey, support your friendly local gaming store. You can't turn your back on those guys if it's on par whether you're going to order online or order from your local supplier. Get down to your local supplier. They're just local people in the local community helping out, and I'm sure there's a number of local gaming stores that are doing it tough. So yeah, just that's kind of a bit of a shout out to our local gaming stores. I know I'm very grateful for Nextra, our little tiny news agency that's our one and only supplier in Gladstone, and of course we've got one of the biggest ones in the Southern Hemisphere. Zach, you got to see it firsthand Sunday night, Millennium Comics and Collectibles. So yeah, that's a good shout out. But segue over to Big Ipswichki. Now we're expecting big things. You've got a league of 40. We've now heard about these guys down at the Tweed who have a league of 20. They tell me. Yeah, tell us what are we predicting? What's happening?
I guess the best thing is to look at the turnouts. Liam, you were having a look at it this morning.
Yeah.
How are we sitting as far as our registers going?
Current registrations, we have 24 individual coaches on Ipswichki and 10 for the sevens. About halfway with what we're expecting.
Yeah, what is the cap there, Liam?
50 for both we can go up to.
Yep, and is that a venue capacity cap? Is that the reason?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the same venue now. Because there was a bit of an issue with the venue. There was a bit of uncertainty there because it was all set to go at the Epic, the same venue you were just talking about for the local league. It was going to be there. This one was going to be there, and then their lease wasn't renewed, as I understand it, and they've had to find somewhere else. And by a weird coincidence, that is now the location for where it was held in Bledisloe 2023. So it's the same location. 12 months later, new name, new organising committee.
So yeah, big shout out to Trevor and the Epic guys. I think it's actually been a bit of a blessing in disguise for them too, because it looks like they're going up into massive expansion with 3 locations, each doing something slightly different. So our league will be split over 2 of the locations, but the tournament's going to be ironically where Bledisloe was last year. Just Catamere closed down during the course of the year as well. So that location is now becoming epically restaurant.
And yeah, I think a cap of 50 is probably about right for that venue. Yep. So yeah, that's probably a good call. And you heard last episode that I am designing a pitch for the Big Ipswichki, and I'm designing it to play end on end. Will the tables take an end on end pitch?
Yeah. Having said that, that location does actually have double the space what you saw last year. So if we do get a run on numbers very quickly after the podcast hits, then we do have some scope for expansion still.
Cool. Cool. And so obviously, Big Ipswich, we're planning it to be big. You've got 24 regos already, which, that's basically approaching the size of Great Barrier Biff II was already. There's plenty, but there's been a lot of hesitation to really sign up because of this uncertainty around the venue. That's all 100% resolved now. We know where it is. We know what's happening. It was just a temporary pause. Is there anything you want to say to encourage anyone who was umming and ahhing about whether to commit to accommodation or any other kind of expense until they knew exactly what was going on? How would you encourage those guys to get on down?
Zach?
Well, in this particular instance, the information we've gathered is actually from Epic themselves. They put a couple of flyers out basically announcing exactly what we sort of said, including the address of the venue. So it's not a case of maybe or I have heard. It's very much a case of we have seen that this is where it's going to be. So with that in place, I can confidently say that that's where Epic will be handling their venues and handling their events, and being that the Ipswich will be a big event, I'm pretty damn certain that that's where it's going to be.
Brilliant. Why else might you want to come? Tell us why else might you want to come to the big Ipswich? Obviously, it's going to be.
Why else would you want to come?
Yeah.
Well, see, to see me, of course. To see all your favourite Ipswich Blood Bowlers.
Will you have your free hugs? Will you have your free hugs sign on there, Zach? Free hugs.
Oh, look, I could probably make one out. It'd be like one of those sandwich boards you see, one of the Domino's boys. But all jokes aside, if you're travelling the tournament scene, my intentions are the same as the intentions, working hand in hand with, the Great Barrier Biff, the Sunny Coast Slam. We want to have our hallmark in that area where we get our local tournament guys coming in, competing for big spots. It's NAF registered. This will be an opportunity to get your ranking up, but more so than anything else, to test your mettle against some of the best coaches in Queensland. I'm hoping to see some turnout from our Sunny Coast guys, our Rocky guys up in North Queensland. Bring your hats in and come play some Blood Bowl, just the way it always is. It's going to be good spirit, a bit of competition, a bit of laughs. Everything that anyone that's been to one of the tournaments would come to expect.
Yeah. And I'm gonna bounce to Mr. Anthony Whitlock here and tell us a little bit about the rule set. There's quite a unique distinctive about Ipswich in terms of rules. Great Barrier Biff was a very low team value to start, with very few skills to start, and then had semi-progression. What's unique about the rule set for Ipswich?
Well, we just wanted it to be big.
It's so
do
true.
Do you care to elaborate, or is it bring your giant? Is that how it works?
I guess the thing is, if you're sitting at a low tier sort of team and you're like, I wonder what Borak would do in this sort of team. Guess what? You can run him. If you're sitting there with OWA going, oh man, I really wish I could play Griff with OWA. You can play Griff with OWA. We're going this you access via your tier. You're going to be running a tier 1 team with Griff or Borak, but the idea behind the structure was that it would allow a lot of coaches to sort of mix and match and do a couple of things that they're not usually able to do, and have a bit of fun, while not entirely smashing the game to pieces.
Yeah, no, I do. I've personally been a little bit active behind the scenes just to make sure it's a balanced set, but it's a high TV tournament, so that's kind of its unique distinctive, isn't it?
I like the high TV because I can I can finally bring 5 re-rolls with my slam, so I'm looking forward to it.
We're trying to get people there. We're not trying to scare them away, Millsy.
I'm fairly certain I'm not giving away any secrets. Ken Dunford has been over the moon with the rule set only because of the Orc War drummer is finally allowed. And
did you tell Orc Rock that he can only take 8 rerolls? He's not allowed anymore.
No.
Well, you can get 8 plus a leader. You could have 9 total.
He's more over the moon with the war drummer, which inducement from Death Zone that we're allowing in the skill set. So he's gone all out, and last time I heard he's painting a orc rock band for his team display. So something to look out for.
Nice. Yeah, there are some good ones. Yeah. And I actually versed an opponent. I think it was Keegan Quilty. At Ipswich last year, and he had the Warg drummer. So I've versed the Warg drummer at Bloodersloe. Yeah. So that's the other iconic flavour of the Ipswich is something that I think is a Liamism, which is a few oddball rules, a few interesting weather results, a few non-standard kickoff event results. Liam, do you want to plug anything there?
It's probably going to go hand in hand with some of the swag that we're looking at. We're looking at options for snotlings because of one of the kickoff results leads to snotlings joining the team on both sides.
That was so cool last year. That was so cool.
Oh, that's actually new, Zach.
Did we use it last?
I think we used something different. I can't remember exactly what I swapped it out for right now.
There was something about sent-off players joining the pitch.
No. That's gone.
That's
gone
right.
because
That's right.
some of the dwarf teams were abusing that with their death rollers a little bit too much. But you live and you learn with these things.
Find a hole, run through it. No worries.
The death roller's finally gone. Oh no,
same with the ticking time bomb rule has been it's still there, but it's definitely been toned down, considering it led to situations where players would spend several turns going, no, you pick up the ball, no, you pick up the ball, goading the other team to try and pick up the ball. So there's no turnover caused by that anymore. It's 2+ to avoid the explosion. So it should. On the whole, I think we've actually come up with a really solid rule set for the year, and one that's going to lead to some fun, stories on Saturday night being told over a few drinks and stuff like that.
No, and look, there was absolutely no complaints for me about the Saturday night event 2023. Tell us a bit more about that, Zach.
Well, I believe if the discussion is correct, Anthony, help me out here. Is it the same idea?
Yes, everyone will have their 1 litre steins from Heisenberg House.
So it's not exclusive to Norse coaches, not exclusive to Norse.
For anyone who didn't go last year, it was absolutely excellent.
And anyone that came last year would know Troy, myself, and a couple other people got kicked out of there at like 2 a.m. before we.
I was there and I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're still there, and they turned off the lights and they looked at us and said, "We need those glasses back."
Oh no!
Yeah, they need to wash them before they go home.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah, it was a really good. It was a really good event last year. I'm really looking forward to it this year for sure. New name, but definitely building upon the experience of 2023. So. And look, I just wanted to also say if you're not an experienced coach and you're not super confident about coming to a tournament, Ipswich is also just a lot of fun. It's a lot of laughs. If take a slightly more fun team and just turn up. Like, I know that there's going to be a bunch of guys coming to Ipswich, or at least they've told me they are, who it'll be their first tournament. So why don't you join them? Why don't you come along? Big Ipswich. Anything else you guys want to say before we say good sayonara?
Yeah, well, on the note that, for a lot of people, it could be their first tournament. One of the things that we're priding ourselves on, we've got a target to make sure that there's a prize on the prize table for every single participant. So someone, doesn't matter where you end up in the tournament, you will walk away with something from that prize table, as well as the swag that we're putting together, which is looking pretty tasty at the moment.
Look forward to those little releases of tidbit information.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing we can sort of pitch on too is that, like we've already maintained before, like the whole idea is to keep the spirit of the tournament scene in Queensland going. So, like, very much in a welcoming and happy environment. Like, any new coaches should be absolutely confident that they're going to have a good time. Like, that was one of our big goals, is that everybody walking away from the big Ipswich is going to have a great time. And like, if we can have a big turnout where everyone goes, man, that was a sick event, I can't wait till next year, our job's done.
All right. Well, I'd just like to say from Down Underworld Denizens, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to being there. Less than a month. Get your regos in. I'll see you there.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, mates.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
I'd like to just take the time to introduce our guest commentator for Down Underworld Denizens episode 5, Mike Davies, aka San0638. He has been the media officer for the NAF, which I understand led to him being president of the NAF. He currently does statistical data analysis for the NAF. He has been very prominent in the UK tournament scene. In fact, he's won a number of tournaments, both historically and recently. Also, been a member of some teams that have travelled from the UK to compete more widely afield. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Team Scotland, I've been represented 5 times at various Euro Bowls, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, fantastic. So is that because of, tell us about your Scottish connection?
Yeah, my mum's Scottish, and I was brought up there, basically. So to represent European teams in Euro Bowl, you have to have its sort of grandfathering rights. So yeah, absolutely qualified for Team Scotland. Played back in 2008, where the qualifying criteria were, can you travel abroad and are you qualified to play for Team Scotland? So did that, and then retained my place through being fairly reasonable at Blood Bowl. And then more recently, I stopped after Wales in 2019 because the Scottish Blood Bowl scene was expanding massively. Loads of Scottish tournaments, and I wanted to give up my place to people who more represented the Scottish scene. So I sort of stepped back on from that point of view, and I've been reffing and adminning at Euro Bowl since then.
Okay. Well, so you haven't stopped attending; you've just stopped playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Malta, I went and I ran the scoring system, and I'm going to Greece to help them out as well.
So what's your hot take? In Down Underworld Denizens episode 4, we predicted that Australia at their first ever Euro Bowl are going to come top 10. Do you think that's a fair prediction, or do you think we're just completely naive?
No, I think top 10 is reasonable out of the 20, what is it, 24, 22? Yeah, I think top 5 or 6 are usually fairly solid, and then after that there's another sort of 10 or so where it's all a bit in the mix. It's a dice game, isn't it? And see how it goes, really. Team Scotland have usually been in that sort of middling section, but never quite high enough to get the hosting rights. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of times where we've tanked completely, but we're usually around the middle. But not up with.
I just want to support what you were saying, that our World Cup teams have used the same method of recruiting in the past that you talked about happening earlier on for Team Scotland. Are you prepared to pay to get to the World Cup? Yes, you're in.
Yeah, exactly.
But our Euro Bowl team is not like that. It's actually going to be quite competitive. They had a bit of a selection process and they've stuck to it. They've turned down a couple of very juicy potential ringers in. So to have the team that they've got. So, yeah. I hear that in acting and theatre, which I know you are involved in socially, there's a saying called "break a leg," but it
Yeah.
doesn't say "have your son break a leg," right? And you've just missed out on a big holiday because of a
Yeah.
family accident. You have managed to get to the UKTC and another tournament just the weekend gone. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I had planned to head to Greece for 10 days. But about a month ago, almost just over a month ago, my son fell down a few stairs and broke his leg, and it seemed a bit harsh to jet off and leave him. So I gave up my spots, and the family went off without us. But that meant we were able to head up to York. So the UK team, I think it's the UK team Challenge is what it's called. Everyone calls it the Championship, but it's the Challenge. And that's 300 coaches in York, which is really good. Squads of 4. So team tournaments have been a real big thing recently. And this is one of the good ones that's been going for 10 years almost. So I was able to take Alex to that one. And then because we were a bit mad and we were just the two of us at home, we got home from 6 days and a 4-hour drive Sunday night, and then headed off on another hour-long drive along the motorway to play 3 more games of Blood Bowl. And that was just a little 3 games, 14 players. So I managed to pick up the win on that one with 2 wins and a draw with Pro Elves. I saw that the first tiebreaker was most touchdowns, and so I dusted off the Pro Elves. And scored 8 touchdowns, but it wasn't the most touchdowns because the Skaven guy picked up 10 in his 3 games with a 5-1 win, I think it was.
Sincerest form of flattery is imitation. I managed to pick up most touchdowns with my Pro Elves at Bloodersloe last year. We're going to get formally into... Sorry, Con.
It's what they're good for, isn't it? You want to score touchdowns. Don't care about having many players on the pitch. It's fine.
That's it. I think Millsy would say that's what Slan are good for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm scoring touchdowns. 100%.
Yeah, I stayed out of the injury box.
But my draw was a 3-3 against Slan.
Yeah, so, and it's not like you get to miss out on going to Greece altogether, because you will be going to Greece for Euro Bowl. So
I will, yeah. So that was a last minute thing as well, because everything changed around. They were going to be running it without me, but I sort of said, well, do you want me to come along? And they're using my software, so I said, all right, yeah. And they were able to fit a plane ticket into their budget, so that was quite nice.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and that's X-Score, isn't it? The software you're talking about?
Yeah, we've used it for the last 3 or 4 Euro Bowls. It just sort of does the job. Doesn't have a few of the bells and whistles that people like online, putting in event of scores. But we've got bits of paper. We stick all the numbers in, and it produces the draw. Does the job. Doesn't break. Touch wood. And doesn't require internet either.
Yeah, I used your X-Score for Tournament of Champions when I ran that, and the issue I had is we had a number of coaches that weren't NAF members, and you were like, "That's a thing," and I was like, "Yeah, in Australia that's a thing." And not that it's an issue anymore, because now we just all enter them with NAF name non-NAF and the NAF number of number 9, and it's all sorted. So let's jump straight into the question. Tell us about how you first got into Blood Bowl. Tell us about that journey.
Second edition for me. The first of 3 touchdowns, games last 5 hours, edition, polystyrene pitch. That was at school. So I went to boarding school, and that's how I got into wargaming in general. So when I was 10 or 11, headed off, and there was Blood Bowl, there was Space Marine, which is now Epic. I think they were the main 2. So I played a bit of that, and Hero Quest as well. Seems to be the way into them. But yeah, I've been playing Blood Bowl since I guess 1990, 1989-ish, and then picked up 3rd edition, which is obviously the one that is broadly the same as it is now. Took a bit of a gap during university, A-levels, and a bit of work, and then got back into it, I guess in about 2007, 2006. My first NAF tournament was 2007. Didn't really look back after that. Just started playing a load of NAF tournaments, especially when my kids got a bit older and they were able to come away with me for the weekend. Made it into a nice family weekend. Yeah, and I've been playing pretty solidly since 2007, up till now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you've been playing that long, what's your favourite team of all time? And then what's maybe your favourite team recently?
So recently, I've had a bit of success with Black Orcs, which has been lots of fun. I sort of I've worked through. I was the 24th person to do the 24 races back when there were only 24, and since then I'm now working through them all again. So I'm more of a mixed bag player than a specialist. But I went through a Black Orc run after I won a tournament with them, and then thought, well, there's some ranking points there to be gained, and so I went on a bit of a run with them leading up to the World Cup, where I got best Black Orc at the World Cup, and then a couple more tournaments and was able to get the world #1 ranking position with Black Orc. So I've stuck with them for a bit, and then I'm going to park them until someone else overtakes, I think, probably. But the reason I quite like them and was reasonably successful with them is because before that it was Lizards, and they are, not exactly the same race, but broadly similar, strong, 7 strength 4+ players on the line of scrimmage, no messing. And so I played quite a lot with Lizards, and it's that sort of the sort of strong control teams is what I quite like, not necessarily looking at removals all the time, but just making life very difficult for your opponent when they can't. When their first opportunity, their first action of the game of the turn has to be a 2 dice uphill block, then you're doing something all right. So lots of guard, lots of strength 4, make life difficult for your opponent. It's not about everyone having fun, is it?
Well, it's about one of you having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And just
as
on
long as the
Black
net
Orcs,
fun is better. Yeah.
just on Black Orcs, they've just lost the ability to use guard on fouling. Do you think that's going to affect their performance?
Marginally, I think the thing with the Black Orcs and fouling is that you suck people into your own half, and so by the time you're fouling someone, you don't necessarily need all the guard on there, because you've got a few players in your own half, because you grab them to your side of the line of scrimmage and then kick them in the head with your players on your side. Yeah, I did usually take 2 bribes, I think it was, with Black Orcs, because obviously the bribes are cheaper, and you've got the what's it called, bribery and corruption as well, so you're not very likely to get sent off. But I didn't go with the sneaky git, because you could have the bribes instead, and the skills are normally better spent on block and guard. So I think it'll be marginal, but to be honest, it was a bit hard. Yeah, in terms of affecting their performance, they're always in the bottom 5, like, win ratio anyway. So you won't notice much difference. They were rubbish before, and they'll still be rubbish now for most people, I think. So won't trouble the scorers too much.
Fair enough.
So what about favourite team of all time?
Yeah, I think probably Lizards. I've got the Impact Crocodile Lizards in metal, because they're quite old, and there's something about their sort of heft to them, just being able to trundle down the pitch. I like the way they look, and probably Lizards are my all-time go-to. It's really nice as well, just being able to pick up your skinks and just put them anywhere on the pitch you want, basically. It's like, oh, I'm on this side. No, not anymore. I'm now going to go all of them over to this side, and most of the Saurus can follow them as well. So yeah, combined with the speed and the strength and the actual figures as well, the combination of those things means that Lizards are my all-time, really.
I think all of us here can appreciate the heft of a good metal model. Brings back solid memories, and means they're not going to get blown away in the wind if you happen to be playing outdoors somewhere.
Yeah, it's quite fun when most of your figures are metal, and then you've got like a couple of plastic ones in there just to make up the, like, chameleons or something like that, the more recent additions, and you pick them up and you're basically throwing them across the room because they're not as heavy.
You forgot which ones aren't as heavy.
That team that you talked about, the Impact team, which is still available to purchase up to this day, was a very unusual team in that it was a collaboration between Roll Jordan and Impact Miniatures at the time, and I think they've held up very well the test of time. I still think they look fantastic miniatures for given the period of time they were released. I really do like them. I think they're really like them.
With the scale creep, a lot of my figures look slightly ridiculous on the pitch nowadays. I've got the Timberline Wood Elves, and they're just ridiculously tiny compared to anything that Games Workshop has put out, and all of the other suppliers as well. The scale creep has gone for everyone really.
So they look ridiculous.
So some of mine look tiny.
Next to 5th edition vampires and 5th edition pro elves.
I had 3rd ed pro elves at the weekend, so that was good.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a pun in there about scale creep with crocodiles somewhere as well.
Very good.
So the next question we've got for you, Mike, is what's your favourite star player, either as a model individually or on the table that you enjoy using?
Yeah, I'm not hugely into stars. In leagues, I struggle with them because they eat up all the star player points, and then in tournaments, it just makes things a little samey sometimes. But a star every now and again. In terms of models, I think one of your previous guys say the Fat Glart model. I think it was Nate, wasn't it? Fat Glart is a great model. Just I think, yeah, goes back to the heft thing, doesn't it? So that's really good. But in terms of favorite stars, so I like ones that can do something like a bit different. I don't usually want to be scoring with a star. So someone like Fungus the Loon is quite fun because it's a bonus fanatic. So if you're playing goblins, you've got to lean into the nonsense anyway, and just have as many fanatics on the pitch as you can. But I always really like facing fanatics because I tend to find they're quite easy to take down most of the time. Just because as soon as you could do a 2 dice uphill with block and they can go down, or with wrestle, and then they're out of the pitch, and they're normally quite a few gold coins that are then off the pitch.
Yeah, true. I hadn't thought about using wrestle against a fanatic before, but that's a good point. Relating to that, do you prefer playing in tournaments or in leagues? I mean, obviously they both have their merits, but is there one you prefer more than the other?
Yeah, I'm more of a tournament player now. I'm quite busy with a load of stuff, non-gaming related, so it's really tricky to carve out the time for a regular evening league spot. I jointly started up the local league in Swindon, which has been going for, I don't know, 10 years more than now. But it wasn't a league night league. It was a play at people's houses, arrange your games sort of thing, because that was easier to fit in. But even that's been a bit tricky to fit in now. So I'm very much a tournament player now, because you can plan those in advance and get away for the weekend or for a one day. And we're blessed here. We've got tournaments almost every weekend that you can get to. So it's a case of, I've got a spare weekend here. Which tournaments are on? Which can I get to, and then 2 or 3 flagship tournaments a year where they go in the calendar, and then other life fits around those. Yeah, more of a tournament player now.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah,
we've been struggling to get our league actually finished on time in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's gone over target just a little bit, but we're trying to wrap this season up so we can get the next one launched.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky with the admin sometimes. Yeah.
In between, we want to play some kind of one-off shenanigan type things. Love to finally play a game of death match. Is that what it's called? Death something.
Death Bowl.
Death Bowl. Yeah, I'd love to play a game of that. So yeah, 4-player. Yeah. That's one of the things I think we're going to plan to do term 4 when we don't have an active league. So imagine, I've never met the man, Mike. Maybe you have. Maybe you've had a chat with people at GW. I don't know. But imagine Jay Clare reaches out to you and says, hey, Mike, we really respect your data analysis. We really love what you do for the NAF. Are we going to let you make one rules change for the next release of Blood Bowl? What would you suggest would be an important rules change? What would be the one thing you'd say, this is what I want to see?
I to be honest, I wouldn't actually. I'm going to change the question a little bit, in that I'm happy with the rules. Like the obviously the multiple rerolls per turn was a big change. I'm still convinced it was a mistake that they sort of lent into. But for me, it's about clarity rather than actual changing the rules. So I just think CRP was absolutely fine, and then obviously they put it into BB16 with no changes, and the rules were absolutely fine. I quite liked them at that point because I knew all the rules and was confident in it being, like, as a TO and a ref, whatever, I was confident in being able to give an interpretation of any rule situation at all. which was handy because I was the ref in 2015 in Lucca in Italy, and we had one which was a quick snapping with a fanatic, where you allowed to block someone, I think it was, or something like that. And so there was really obscure stuff. But now with the evolution into 2020, there's so much grey area. They tried to put in these action words, like a block action, and then decided that a block action would be part of a blitz action, which just made everything muddy. So if I had the ear of Games Workshop, they don't talk to me very much. I occasionally used to. I would just say, sort it out so that it's clear. You are professional. Well, in theory, they're professional rules writers, but there's no reason for grey areas and muddy water in the rules. Just make it super clear so everyone knows what they're doing, and no faffing about, really.
I like it. Consistency and clear wording. I remember one of the big debates back in the day was around use of the word may. And may can be meant in a legal term as in you must, but it's ambiguous because people use may as, well, you can, but you can also not. So
and all that needed was to say may stick a capital M on may, and then have a glossary that says may means can, or can choose to.
No, and I do think that we've gone a little backwards in that regard. I do think there was a lot of work done, particularly to LRB 6 or the compendium rules pack version of the rules to make sure that ambiguity was removed. And particularly, I think Tom Anders spent a lot of time during the fairly major revision between LRB 4 and LRB 5, just making sure there was a real consistent wording. And I think that gets forgotten, it gets lost. And I do think we get some unusual situations where, in some cases, the FAQ almost contradicts the precedent.
Yes. Yeah. It's not an FAQ. It's a change, isn't it? The FAQ changed the rules. They don't call it an FAQ. I don't think they call it a
designer's commentary.
That's it. Designer's commentary. Yeah, covers a multitude of sins.
All righty. Well, let's move away from Blood Bowl for just a moment. What's your favourite meal?
Favorite meal? Yeah, absolutely. I like a barbecue. I don't get them very often. I'm sitting by my garden at the moment and looking at my barbecue, which doesn't get as much love as it wants to. I really love cooking outside, basically, which I think I'm in the wrong country for, but that's fine. So I like a barbecue. I've got a pizza oven, which is good for cooking outside. And when I go camping, I sometimes cook on the campfire as well. So anything that's outside is good for me. But when I'm barbecuing, I tend to not go just basic meaty stuff. I tend to go interesting veg as well. You can do some amazing sort of char grilled veg and things over the coals.
That sounds pretty awesome. Sounds pretty Aussie to me. I reckon over the campfire and on the barbecue in the backyard.
I know. I need to move as well.
You're speaking our language, that's for sure.
I think we need to waive that. We need to waive that honorary Australian wand we used over Nate Beam in episode 2, Millsy.
I think you might have gave it to Nate a bit too quickly. I think Mike is it.
I think we can do it more than once. I mean, look at how many honorary titles universities give out to some celebrity that comes and gives out awards on awards night.
Yeah, Dr. Mike, we can hand that over. Hey, listen, Mike, you've alluded to this before. So one of the things for us to get our heads around here in Australia is it true that in the UK, there is a tournament pretty much every weekend somewhere? And if it is, how do you choose which one to attend? And then on top of that, what would be your favourite one and why?
Yeah, good question. There is pretty much one every weekend, I think. The one I went to on Monday, it was a bank holiday Monday. And it was so even more than one a weekend. So things I weigh up, proximity. So there's normally within probably an hour and a half. I think there's probably one a month within an hour and a half of me, I think. And then so I'll look at those within Swindon itself. We actually have 3 or 4 a year, which is really nice. So that's literally within sort of 10 minutes drive. So I'll try and get to those, because obviously you don't need to stay over. And then you've got the big flagship events. So I've been to the NAF Championship, I think probably 10 out of the last 12 or something like that. And that's in Nottingham. It used to be at Warhammer World, but then it moved to get bigger, basically. And that's 300 coaches. And that's a good one. It's just, that's one that people travel for. It's like, it is the flagship event. It used to be where the new gift was unveiled, and it's got a few sort of bells and whistles. There's always lots of vendors there and just lots of people, so it's nice to see them. Then there's ones that I've been going to for a long time. Water Bowl up in Manchester is a bit further away, but I've been going to that since there weren't as many tournaments around. So I always used to go to Water Bowl, and that's a really strong field, so worth traveling for, and just for historic reasons as well. So it'll be a mixture of ones run by my friends, ones with a decent quality, and for me, historical reasons as well, because I've been playing the game such a long time. I've got attachment to tournaments and just want to keep it going with them. So yeah, all sorts of things. But what it absolutely isn't is rule set. I know there are some people who will decide not to go to a tournament because of particular rules. Are they allowing star players? Do they allow multiple skills on a particular race? Because I can take any race basically, and for me it's about the social side, but as well as the competition. I'll never look at the rule set before deciding to go to a tournament or not. It'll be about proximity, history, and the date that it's on. Am I free that weekend?
Excellent.
Yeah, so what advice do you have for us in Queensland? You know, we had a period of 8 years where there was no tournaments at all. Now, amongst some of us anyway, there's genuine concern that we might get too congested with tournaments. We've got we've got about a dozen tournaments around the state planned for 2025, and there's some concern that we might kind of spread ourselves a little too thinly, because obviously we don't quite have the same population of the UK. Yeah, what would be your advice there? I mean, obviously Blood Bowl's come out of very much a growth mindset, and now we're probably wrestling a little bit with the fact that growth is kind of happening.
Yep.
Maybe we're a bit of a victim of our own success.
Yeah, it depends what you're trying to achieve, really. I know there's a guy who runs a gaming store, probably about 90 minutes, 2 hours away from me, who has quite regular Blood Bowl tournaments just at his store. So he has one every 2 months, like a 1-dayer, and then has a 2-dayer twice a year, I think, something like that. So in himself, he's running quite a few tournaments. We have had tournaments cancelled due to lack of numbers, which obviously is a risk. But it sort of depends what the aim is. If you're looking for big tournaments, then obviously fewer would be good. But I think if you're just getting people together, then I think regular is fine. A tournament series is quite a lot of fun, where you stack up the points based on your performance in multiple tournaments. That can be quite a good way of maintaining interest and seeing who the best tournament player is over a certain number of tournaments. If you haven't signed up to make it a tournament series, then that's a good idea. We've got one in the southwest of England, where all the different tournaments contribute points depending on their size. But in terms of the social side, then more is fine if they're viable tournaments. If you can get enough to cover the costs. And it just makes people better as well. The more tournament play you have, the better you get at playing tournament Blood Bowl. And for me, what I really like, and this was one of the nice things about the thing I went to on Monday, was that it was quite a small tournament. It was only 14 players, but the field was quite strong. So we had multiple international players there. For me, what I don't like doing is traveling to a tournament and playing someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. I do quite like teaching Blood Bowl, but if I've gone to a tournament, then what I really want to do is to play 6 really intense competitive games of Blood Bowl. And if you have a limited supply of coaches, then the way to do that is to improve everyone's standard of Blood Bowl. And you do that by playing more Blood Bowl. So
Excellent. We're gonna pivot and talk a little bit now about the statistics analysis that you do with the NAF. The first thing is, can you describe for us what your current role is with the NAF? Tell us a tiny bit about your tableau. And a question I've got to ask, and I'm genuinely curious, and I don't know the answer, is it a role you actually get a nominal wage for?
Oh no one in the NAF is paid anything. No, it's not quite true. You do get free membership, so you get the goodies.
Great, you get paid. You get paid £5 a year. Great, brilliant.
Basically, yeah, you get the goodies for free each year if you're on NAF staff. So I think ex presidents are NAF staff for life. So when I was president, there was no sort of, well, there isn't really, but there's a little bit of a one where it's sort of I put it in the tree diagram as in the org chart, sorry, as sort of advisory committee, because if you have ex-presidents and ex-tournament directors, then you can always go to them and lean on them and ask questions. So that's, but for me, it was the ex-NAF staff and particularly ex-committee, where I always saw them as lifetime advisory people, because a lot of the NAF stuff isn't written down very well, and it's just in people's heads, and so you need to ask, how was this originally set up and that sort of thing. So I'm there as a occasional person who knows what happened back in the day and how we got into the particular position we're in. But I don't have an official role anymore. I've still got NAF admin rights on the NAF site, so I look after. So I can do corrections to things. I can change people's NAF names and stuff like that. But my main role is doing the number crunching. But that was just a thing I started doing back in 2018, I think it was, when I started in my current job role. I got a piece of software that means you can just sort of easily join a load of tables together and produce something quite nice. And so I was able to do that, just download. There's about 6 or 7 databases behind the NAF site. And if you download them all, you can produce a nice database of all the games ever and all the tournament wins and so on. And so I present that in a more flexible way than sometimes the members area does.
Yeah, and it's publicly available to have a browse of. I spend hours poring over the data because I'm one of those very strange people who actually enjoy probability and statistics. Maybe that's my reason for loving Blood Bowl so much, as I love both of those things. But yeah, tell us a little bit about this NAF data. Tell us about how it gets used. First thing I wanted to ask is, tell us about how it can be useful to have a look at that Tableau data for individual coaches. Why might somebody as an individual coach want to get onto that Tableau data and have a bit of a drill in?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the members area itself, you've obviously got your coach page, which tells you some stuff that you've done, and there have always been various inbuilt ways of looking at your win ratios and stuff like that. But if you want to see a few more views on it, then you can go into the Tableau. So, for example, you might want to look at your win ratios over time. Have you improved as a coach? You might want to look at which tournaments you've been to. So I was saying I've been to lots and lots of water bowls. I've been to lots of Thrud bowls. You could look at those particular tournaments only and see how you've done in those over the years. You can see how your NAF rankings change over time, and that it's that sort of stuff. And then it's as well as your own personal interest, you can look at what other people are doing. So you can see which races are being successful, and how much they're being played, and how that changes over time. You can see which races are winning tournaments, and how that's going, which has been, I think that's part of what has been fed into Games Workshop. I don't particularly have any. They've never come to me and said, can you adjust this view so we can see this a bit better? But some of the stuff they've said indicates that they've been looking at the data, and it would make sense that they've been looking at the stuff that I produce.
I've really been impressed by GW over this 2020 rule set period in terms of how well they seem to be gathering their data.
Yeah.
I had a very strong suspicion that in the 2016 release period, they were basically gathering their data from their own little playtesting league, and that was about it. And I felt like, well, how well informed are you really? Whereas now they clearly are getting people who, if they're not getting it firsthand, they're getting secondhand information from the NAF that really is informing their decision making. And sometimes maybe they're a little bit slow. Like I'm a bit surprised Skidder Stab's not a megastar yet. There's a couple of things. I'm a little surprised at how slow it took them to take Swarming off Underworld, but they got there.
Yeah. The next thing will be Vampires. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, interestingly. All right, tell us a tiny smidge about that.
Oh, Vampires are doing very well in quite a few tournaments. There's an obvious change you could make, which is to mean that the tackle zone of the person being gazed affects the gaze, so it makes it a 3+ rather than a 2+. Because sometimes when you're playing Vampires, it can feel like you just sit there while your opponent rolls dice. Like you can make the best defense you can, and if the opponent doesn't roll any ones, then it doesn't actually matter. He'll just roll in and take the ball off you. So I don't know if they'll adjust that at some point, but that would be an obvious change to make. Is make it 3+ rather than 2+. They're not dominating the win percentages, so it may not happen. But in the hands of a decent player, they're one of those slightly swingy races. In the hands of a decent player, they can be very, very good. But that's sort of dragged down by people who don't know what they're doing quite as much. And
I don't know. I as a vampire coach, I don't know that I'd be super keen to see Hypnogaze go to 3+. I think what I'd like to see is, I think obviously the vampire runners make a significant difference because they're movement 8, and I think that makes a big difference. I also think there's been a couple of rules changes that weren't actually on the vampire team, but significantly advantage the vampires. So pro being 3+ rather than 4+ plays into vampires' strengths, and the other one is that if somebody's Hypnogaze, they lose all their skills.
Yes.
That's the big one.
Dynamic. Yeah. So I'd like to see some kind of change to that, probably in some capacity. I think would fix the problem rather than a change, because on other players like Zolcath the Zoat, if you suddenly said, the tackle zone of the player that you're hypnogazing affects that role, well, suddenly then Zolcath's only hypnogazing on a 5+.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it'd be easy enough to just errata his stat to make it one better.
I guess you could. That's true. Particularly if it's going to be a whole new edition, which I'm praying that is not the announcement we're going to see tomorrow at the time we're recording. That said, I wouldn't mind it towards Christmas. I think that'll be interesting. So we're talking about your Tableau data, Mike. Tell us how it can be used by a tournament organizer or a league commissioner. Is there some ways you can use that data produced by the NAF for that purpose?
So people do use it for tiering. It's quite a common question is in discussion is whether people put the teams in the right tiers, and that's based on win percentages sometimes. But yeah, one of the frustrations with the NAF data is that it's not stored in any sort of standard format, whether a tournament has used stars, whether a tournament has used tiers, and so on. So if tiers have been used appropriately and different skill sets have been given out, then you could say that every race should then have a 50% win ratio, because obviously the point of handicapping different teams is to drag down their win ratio. And so if Underworld are still having a 62% win ratio, even after they've been handicapped by having fewer skills, then if everything was completely untiered, then that would obviously be higher as well. So you can look and see which races should be lower down. One thing you can do actually is you can look at you can browse through the different rule sets. I can't remember if it's immediately available, but that could be an interesting one. Is just to look at the different rule sets and see what other people are doing. You can see it in the the members area anyway, but it's slightly easier to see sometimes in the tableau. And also one other thing I do is I present the map of where tournaments are and when they are. So if you are starting to plan a tournament, then you can look at the sort of annual cycle of tournaments. This is really important when we're talking about tournament density earlier. You can see, okay, well, in May to September there are 2 tournaments a month within 50 miles of me, whereas over the winter period there are fewer tournaments. So maybe it would be a good idea if I'm looking for a slot for a tournament, then you can stick that in there. A few ideas. So it's definitely worth browsing, and as you say, it's open to everyone. They're worth having a look.
And so then, obviously, next level up is kind of the NAF themselves. Obviously, they keep a close eye on the data. How do they do anything with that data? How do they utilize that as an organisation?
Not a huge amount, I don't think. It's the good thing about the NAF is they are a facilitating organisation. Stimmer does a lot of work in keeping it tidy. We do things like chasing up tournaments that haven't submitted their results so that people have those in. Sometimes, obviously, there are errors in the database, so we keep that tidy. The NAF staff do a great job in terms of speaking to people about their tournament rule sets. There's certain things you can't do in the NAF. You can't remove skills. You can't change stats. And so the real benefit of the NAF is keeping things so that they are comparable. So that if you are looking at the rule set, you can draw some conclusions. And so we avoid the garbage in, garbage out problem as much as we can. Obviously, there are always going to be tournaments where you can have stars or you can't have stars, and so can you compare those tournaments in terms of race performance as well? Probably not, but we know that there aren't too many sort of wacky tournaments. We know that you're comparing. You don't end up comparing 7s to 11s, for example, stuff like that. It's about keeping a tidy data set. And for me, well, that's what the NAF is about. It's about consistency over time, knowing what you're going to get when you travel to a tournament.
Mm-hmm. And what about you mentioned Games Workshop? Obviously, know at least broadly what's going on with the NAF data. Is there something that's kind of the pinnacle of a change or an adjustment that you think, yes, finally, all my hard work doing all that number crunching has actually paid off with a beneficial decision? Is there something where you kind of have a little secret crowning glory there somewhere?
Not really, I don't think. I think no, I think for me that the sort of crowning glory is just about keeping things going. Like, I'm a big believer in supporting the game and keeping the game going and keeping interest going in the game. And I think being able to present the data and have people talk about it and discuss it in that way, for me, that's sort of the reason that I do it. Is I would be quite happy if the rules sort of were static. I love the CRP times. It's like, okay, here's our rule set, we just play it. The rules of chess haven't changed in 2,000 years. We just stick with those. It's fine.
If that's you, play chess.
I'm thinking, surely the latest FAQ, when they introduced that, they said we've been looking at the data for Underworld, so we've made this change. So we can only presume that they're looking at the NAF data for that.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. But Mike is incredibly humble and modest. I know this from several conversations, and there's actually quite a few decisions that are clearly influenced by the NAF data. So the adjustments to tiers, if you go back and have a look at what decisions they've made to adjust tierings for various teams, it's clearly based on NAF data. So, anyway, I think there's a number of things that you could claim, but I love your modesty. I love your humbleness. It's great. But, we also really want to catch what you're saying, that it's not so much about that as it is about providing basically a good shiny mirror for us to look and see what's going on.
Yes. Yeah, and so we've seen that most recently in the Euro Bowl. So I don't know if you've seen all the Euro Bowl rosters and German Team Bowl, which is using the same rule set, and Europen. Those rosters will be going up, and I've stuck those up, and then someone else has run with them, and they've produced the sort of written analysis to go around the outside, saying, this is what we're seeing with this number of Dark Elf teams have taken 2 assassins, this number have taken 1 assassin, this summer haven't. These are the different skill sets that different races have taken. So I'm always very happy just to provide the numbers and then leave it to others to provide the narrative to go around the outside of that.
And so lastly, tell us what's your opinion about tiering? I mean, obviously it's going to be dependent upon things like whether the tournament's got stars or not. But based on what you currently see in the data, if you were devising a rule set for someone who was running a tournament nearby you, what would you advise? What would you recommend? First of all, how many tiers? Would you go with just the standard GW3, or would you go more granular than that?
I'd first of all, I'd advise them to speak to my son, who is a big fan of Theory Bowl, and has a lot of time on his hands at the moment. That'd be the way to go. But I would go with a few different tiers, I think. But I think if I was designing a rule set, I haven't run my own tournament for ages, and when I did, it actually wasn't tiered at all. It was just like, go for your life. You've got 6 skill points on day 1. You've got 6 skill points on day 2. Like a standard skill is 1, a secondary is 2, and a stat is 3 points. Just do whatever you like, see what happens. And it was nonsensical, but it wasn't something that anyone else was doing at the time, so it was quite fun from that point of view. But for me, I'm not necessarily trying to get every race to finish with the same level, but what I do really like is, at something like the NAF Championships, if you've got maybe 100+ coach tournament, then I think a rule set has done its job if every race is there. So every race has to have something to make it viable. If you can look at a rule set and say, well, obviously the pick there is orcs, let's all play orcs, then I think the rule set that's an indication that the rule set has gone wrong. And equally, if there are a big chunk of races that are not represented, then I think the rule set's gone wrong there as well. So I think getting all the races there, and I think if you are into designing rule sets, then have a load of tiers, and that's good fun. But for me, the thing about a good tournament is having a good venue, a decent price point, and getting it well advertised, and then making it run smoothly. I'm less into the rule sets and more into the logistics side of things.
Yeah, I think also there's something to be said for you've got to cater to your audience.
Yes,
I've had a look at the Greece Euro Bowl rule set, and my mind boggles at that rule set. It's quite a complicated rule set. You've got about 6 different packages that you can apply to your team, and you can choose to get this set or that set. And then you've got the tiering structure, and then you've got certain stars that are banned, and it's not the standard GW banning of stars. You've got stars like Varag and Wilhelm who make that cut and aren't available. Mate, but the point is that works for Eurobowl, because everybody who's going to Eurobowl are experienced Blood Bowl coaches, so they can get their head around that. Whereas if you've got a whole bunch of coaches who, may have only played 1 or 2 tournaments before, that complexity of rule set's not going to work. So, what's really interesting for me is I'm kind of debriefing after running a tournament last weekend, the Great Barrier Biff II, and it was semi-progression. So my tier 1 teams could only take 2 skills to start, but tier 3 teams could take 6 skills to start. And I think a lot of people were initially drawn to that tier 3, tier 4, not so much tier 5, because they were only the stunty teams down there, and there's no stars available, right? So where they're going to end up. But when I actually looked at the final results, because it was semi-progression and everybody got new skills every round, actually it was the parity was good, but I didn't get a good pickup initially I didn't get a good spread of teams. We had 28 coaches and only 16 teams fronted up. Quite a few
as a ratio.
Yeah, but it was definitely tier 3, tier 4 heavy. But I think some of that might have just been that people were looking at the initial build, not what the build would look like by game 3 or game 4 after the progression. So I was actually pretty happy with how the teams finished up when I look at the breakdown of where the tiers finished. But there was definitely a bit of a skew in terms of which teams were taken. So that's something for me to reflect on later. I had 5 tiers for interest, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next time around, but I'm definitely going to have a good look at your data before I make a final decision for the next Barrier Biff.
Yeah. Yeah, have a look at other rule sets as well. I think the UKTC one is normally seen as quite a decent rule set in terms of tiering.
Yep. Is there anything anybody you want to have a shout out to? Anything you want to say about tournaments in Australia? Is there any way we can bribe or corrupt you to come to Australia to play in a tournament?
I would love to.
We'll put on a barbecue for you, Mike.
We'll
put a barbecue on if you do come down.
Around a campfire.
Yeah. One of my wife's best friends is in Australia, so it is on the bucket list at some point. And if I do head over, then I'll definitely have a look at the Blood Bowl calendar. But it'd be good to see you guys, some of you at Euro Bowl. I was speaking to James the other day, Rabbit, and just saying yes, see you there, and wishing him luck. But yeah, I hope you guys do well. Be good.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Mike. We really appreciate you being on our podcast.
My pleasure.
Our next segment is going to be talking about Around the Grounds. Welcome to our segment Around the Grounds. And for this segment, we're actually going around the grounds to a state I have to be very embarrassed and confess I've actually never been to. Not out of anything particularly intentional, just haven't got there yet. And I'm sure that our guest commentators for this segment will probably rib me heaps and tell me how I should have come several times for several of their awesome events. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let me introduce, first of all, Adam Marafiotti, a.k.a. Olaf the Stout. Say good day.
Hello.
And Casper Ferdia, a.k.a. a Tad Vane.
Hello, everybody.
And Down Underworld denizens have selected Adam and Casper to come on our Down Underworld denizens Around the Ground segment to talk about what is going on with Blood Bowl, both historically and currently in South Australia, and particularly Adelaide, or as a few of us like to say, Radelaide. We particularly wanted these guys on because they have a very long and rich history that we're all a bit jealous of with Southern Strike Bowl. But let's not get to Southern Strike Bowl straight away. I want to jump in and first of all talk about leagues in South Australia, open to either of them. Gentlemen, tell us a little bit about what happens in terms of leagues in Adelaide. Is there one big league? Is it all fragmented? And, if you're playing Glenelg, then it doesn't matter whether you play forwards or backwards because it's the same name.
So we've got probably what I would say 3 leagues that have been running quite a while, and a fourth one that was around before that has just popped back up again. So the 3 leagues that have been running for either 7 to 8 seasons now, there is one up north called GAFA, or the Gawler Amorical Football Association. They're on season 7, so that's the one that I've played in the past. Have stepped out of it in the last season just to have a little bit of a break. It's probably 12 to 20 people playing in that one. There's one called the Prospectors League, and they play a bit more central, just slightly north of the city. They're in season 7, and there's about 20 players in that. And the other one, and they're in season 7 yet. And then there's Stomp, which is at St. Mary's, which is just south of Adelaide. And they're in season 8, and they've got about a dozen or so players. And then the one that has just come back is Adelaide, and that's running in the Adelaide CBD. So that ran about 5 or so years ago, and then went on hiatus and has just started back up again with the new game store that's opened in the city.
As veteran tournament organisers, is there anything anywhere else in the state? Like, is there a Port Augusta League or something that you get those guys drifting over for a tournament, or you're not aware of anything?
I haven't heard of any. There is a sort of gaming club at Kadina on the York Peninsula that I have heard have run Blood Bowl in the past, but I think that may have been sort of more one-off stuff than any ongoing league. That said, I do find like little sort of small home leagues that just seem to be going around, and then obviously with the sort of cyanide Blood Bowl, a lot of the online stuff happens that, you don't necessarily see unless you're involved in it. I don't know,
Yeah.
Casper, have you come across anything?
Yeah, you do have those little kitchen table groups of friends who play it. They might not even put it as a league. They might just, hey, you want to play a game, Blood Bowl? And they'll group up until one of them finds out, hey, there's like somewhere in Adelaide we can do it, or let's go to this tournament I heard about. And it is an ebb and flow. You'll sometimes have people get really into it and they'll bring all their friends and they'll last for a year, maybe two, and then, all right, cool, they'll back off because they just got married or something like that. And then they'll come back and forth. We do have some pretty long cycles now and then. I've been thinking about all the past leagues that we had as well. Like, we still have people joining from that, like AFAL and the other places like that, but they don't have that commitment. That's pretty much bringing it back to just the tournament that they come to. And even then, they might miss a year every now and then.
So tell us a little bit more about the land map of Blood Bowl in South Australia. What tournaments are there in South Australia? I will confess I know a little bit because South Australia has been a bit of a bastion of Blood Bowl. There's been a lot of interest about a number of tournaments in South Australia for a while. So I rattle off Southern Strike Bowl being probably the number one tournament in South Australia to try to get to. But the other two that are honourable mentions is there used to be the 24 Ironman tournament, and I remember some interstaters trekking to that. The other one that always piqued my interest was the Adelaide Dungeon Bowl Cup or something like that. But tell us about the state of tournaments in South Australia. Caspia, why don't you hit us up?
Well, there definitely are some popular ones. The 24-hour one has been absorbed with a blessing by Adam because he does not hate himself enough and continues to try to do more and more things with Blood Bowl because it's either that or he has to like pay attention to his family more. And honestly, I understand the benefit there. No, he puts on a massive, massive effort for the 24-hour tournament. And I'll let him say how many minutes it took for it to sell out this year because we were not really expecting anywhere near the sheer response after the first inaugural year. But I had a couple of friends who go, oh yeah, I'll like sign up for that tomorrow, and missed out.
Yeah, we had a Victorian invasion where because I run it, so it's called Rise and Grind now, and we've gone with a coffee themed tournament rather than the 24-hour Ironman, which Evan Whitaker ran before us. So took that back up in 2023 after Evan COVID sort of took it out for a bit, and then Evan decided he didn't want to continue it.
Yeah, right. So COVID hit. And then you called the pest inspectors because you had this pest that arrived, a whole bunch of Victorians. Oh, sorry. Go on. You were saying?
So we ran it in 2023, and I think there was 13 or 14 of us. And then decided to, we weren't dumb enough the first time to not do it again. So ran it again in 2024. And for whatever reason, a whole group of Vics had heard about it and decided that seemed like fun. So I think it might have been 24 to 48 hours, like the 20 spots that we had sold out. And I think we ended up with either 12 or 13 Victorians at a South Australian tournament. They outnumbered us at our own tournament. So like 60% Victorians at a South Australian tournament was just a bit bizarre, but made for a pretty fun experience.
Yeah. Are there plans to go bigger for the next event for next year?
I don't think so, simply because like I'm dumb enough to run it, play in it, and cater it all at the same time. Yeah, so like, I'm literally cooking an entire brisket and pulled pork like as we're playing, while also not sleeping for 30 hours and trying to play 10 games of Blood Bowl.
I will interrupt just quickly here. Adam has gone insane to the level that he caters. Even Southern Strike Bowl having mass quantities of like hot links, beautiful briskets. His midlife crisis one, he hasn't gone into World War II or anything like that. He's gone into smoking meats and like going to that premium cooking experience. And I, for one, have greatly appreciated this choice and encourage it wherever I can.
Awesome. Yep. I can imagine that would be quite enticing to a number of people. No wonder you have an invasion of Mexicans across the border, although you probably don't call them Mexicans because they're adjacent to you. But yeah, I have hung around Sydney way too long, and so I'm very biased against Victorians, and I am completely only joking. There's a lot of fantastic Victorians that I know and love. But I will say that I like to joke that the Great Ocean Road is called the Great Ocean Road to people in Victoria because Melbourne is so boring.
No, South Australia and Victoria have a very long-standing football-based rivalry, kind of more like your New South Wales, Queensland rugby state of origin style. So no, there definitely is that love-hate relationship there. But yeah, like I roped my family in to help me run and cater the 24-hour Ironman, or the Rise and Grind as it's now known. And yeah, I think 20 may be sort of a nice cap that we can handle. We'd have to change the venue because we just can't fit any more people in the small but comfortable venue that we're in at the moment. So yeah, I think I might keep it like that, maybe just for my sanity as much as anything else.
And is there we actually
find like a perfect. You go.
I was just going to say, is there any distinct differences between Rise and Grind and Infinity Bowl? We actually had George Christodoulou on last episode talking about Infinity Bowl that Clay Mediard ran, and yeah, is there any significant differences to what you do? Do you play 9 games in 24 hours, or is it a bit more fluid?
No, so we have 10 games. So did fit 10 games in there. So yeah, Clay sort of hit me up about that and asked me some questions. So the other probably a couple of big differences is one, ours is a semi-progression, I would say. So you start off with 3 skills, and then after every single game, you get another skill added to your team. So I think by the end of the final game, you've got about 13 added skills across the team. So your team does sort of develop like it would in a league, except obviously you do it in a game by game way where everyone's staying the same, rather than the very first Ironman did have it as progression. And, one poor guy had about 3 positional killed in game 1. And, when you're staring at 24 hours of your team being devastated in game 1, I think it was sort of quickly decided that maybe a resurrection style is a bit more friendly for the poor people that have to have that.
For sure.
It does add to the difficulty. Sorry. It does add to the difficulty that you have been awake for that 35 hours. And like, hang on, does this guy have a skill? Oh God, have I forgotten about it? No, I just got it. I just got the skill. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he has dodge. Yeah, I got tackle. It doesn't matter. Damn it.
Is the next step essentially getting a coffee sponsor for a big brand of coffee to supply victuals at the event?
Bottomless cup.
Well, all our prizes are, like, our trophies are coffee cup in different colors with different, the award names on them. So we have taken that coffee theme and ran with it. And we also have each round you have a coffee cup you can play, where the coffee shop gives you a +1 to any die roll that you make. And it's a natural, so it actually changes the natural roll. So it can let you do some funky stuff, like, let's say if you foul and you roll double 3s, you can add a +1 to one of those 3s, and now it's not a double anymore. or you can automatically succeed on a go for it. If it's normally a 2+, even if you roll a 1, the coffee cup you can choose to use and make it a 2. And even though it is a 1 and 1s always fail, the coffee cup alters the natural roll and makes it a 2.
That's cool.
You can imagine the elf shenanigans.
But it is interesting how people have used it in some weird and wonderful ways but you only get it once per game, so it does lead to decisions of, is this important enough to use the cup for? Or, when it's 4 a.m. and you realize 10 minutes after you've done something that you could have used the coffee cup to pass that.
I can imagine. So what other tourneys are there? What other tournaments feature in South Australia?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Adelaide Dungeon Bowl Cup. So that one started back in 2013. Alex Coombe ran that for several years, and then it went on hiatus for a bit. And then Drew Mack took it over with Alex's blessing. And so for those that don't know, the Adelaide Dungeon Bowl Cup, or ADBC, is a Dungeon Bowl style tournament. So and they actually sort of took the old Dungeon Bowl rules, which were a bit mishmashy, and Alex play tested them and developed them and turned them into a really good rule set, both in terms of like the actual teams and the rules around that, but also the dungeon design and how you do that. And so the NAF then adopted those as their official Dungeon Bowl rules, which then I think GW kind of took and borrowed heavily from when they came out with their own version of Dungeon Bowl.
That's super cool. I did not know that. That is awesome. What a claim to fame.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Alex did a really, really good job with that. And yeah, like it kind of led to the NAF taking it up, and then I guess GW kind of taking it from there. But the other really cool thing about the Dungeon Bowl Cup is Alex built this massive sort of Hearst Arts, which is these sort of plaster tiles that you cast, and built this literal humongous final dungeon that has like about 4 different levels on it. Had to get this custom sort of framework built up to hold it all because the thing was so huge and heavy, and painted it all. There's pictures of it online. It's an absolute masterpiece.
I have seen it. I'd love to get some photos of it up on Down Underworld Denizens on our Facebook group. So yeah, I'd love you to send them. I've personally seen them a few years ago, but yeah, I'd love to stick some pictures up. That'd be great.
Yeah. So Drew ran that back again in 2022. And then he's looking to run it again this year on the 2nd of November. So that should be coming back again. So when we ran it back in 2022, we used the GW colleges rules, and that's what we're doing again when he runs it. So, but then you've still got that final dungeon with the wacky rules and, plenty of bizarre things that go on with that one. That's a game unto itself, the final dungeon.
Sounds great. So moving on to Southern Shrike Bowl. It's probably the biggest tournament in South Australia, is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, this will be our 16th year, I think. It started back in 2008, so I think it's the second longest running tournament in Australia, only behind Ute Bowl. CanCon was longer running, but then went on hiatus for a bit, but I think that may be back again.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Old's been running that. Just actually first time in the TO chair this year. The other one's Moab, Mother of All Battles. It's been running a long time. I ran it for a few years, but Mother of All Battles did actually have a gap year in 2017. We don't count the COVID years in terms of gap years, but it definitely had a gap year in 2017. So we're talking continuous years of operation then you guys would be the second longest running Blood Bowl tournament in Australia.
Hang on a second. There was multiple COVID years? Adam, you only let me have 1 year off.
Yeah, I know.
Technically, we do claim that the Nurgle Rotters team did win that year.
Yeah, I think lots of tournaments may be claiming that one. That was a good year for Nurgle. But Southern Shrike Bowl, so first run in 2008 by a guy by the name of Michael Spearings, who he was in the armed forces. And so 2009 came around and he found out he was getting deployed about a month out from the tournament. So he asked if I could run it, and suggested Casper might be a useful sort to help. So
why did he think you'd be a good choice?
I have no idea. People make strange decisions all the time. I'm not responsible for them.
Because it possibly be because you won it the first year and he probably had your details from that, and I won the most valuable coach and the most casualties, and obviously we had the most what's the word I'd say, the most to lose if this disappeared, and we wanted to be holding on to like our glory as it continued on.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So no, I was fortunate enough to win it in the first year. Probably good that I didn't quite know who Tomsey was and wasn't sort of overawed by who I might have been facing. But yeah, so Casper and I took it up in 2009, and then we've kind of just run it ever since. Michael disappeared off the scene, unfortunately, and Casper and I just kind of took the tournament and ran with it, and it's kind of grown and developed since then. So I think Shrike Bowl is probably a good representation of the type of Blood Bowl scene we've got in South Australia. So you get that mix of players that are coming along because they want to win it and they're focused on, doing as well as they can and trying to get the title. You've got other people that might come along trying to get a particular award, like, most TDs or best painted or most casualties from fouls. And then we have quite a lot of people that are just there to hang out with friends and roll some dice. And, if they win some games, that's a bonus. But I feel like we've got a good mix of players from that. So
yeah, and of course one of the current challenges would probably be because Victoria is actually going gangbusters in terms of Blood Bowl. Like, they have insanely big leagues and all the rest of it. There is a genuine desire for them to go and play in other tournaments, and I guess you guys are relatively close by, so you probably have had quite a few Victorians represent at SSB recently.
Probably not a huge amount. I think last year obviously was just nuts for Big V. Like, it was pretty cool to be in the room when, there's almost 150 Blood Bowl coaches around you. Haven't had too many Vics sign up for Shrike Bowl so far, but we're still 6 weeks out, and a lot of people tend to sign up late.
So this is their wake up call. Get your rego in.
Yeah, we did have the Victorian Invasion for the Rise and Grind tournament, but haven't had it so far yet. We have a few regulars. So Jono DeLacy, who's come across and been the bridesmaid at Shrike Bowl several times. I think he's won several podium spots, taken home the best painted probably maybe 4 times or something like that, but has never won the main title. And a couple of other regular Victorians, but
regular Victorians,
probably more from New South Wales. Well, that's a bit of a misnomer.
Oxymoron.
But yeah. So Southern Shrike Bowl, we tend to get people that once they come along a couple of times, tend to come back on a semi-regular basis. So, you get your Rabbids of the world and your Jonos of the world and your Hutchies that tend to come back more often than not. And then you have your other people that obviously traveling is a bit harder, especially when you've got families and things like that, it's hard to get there every single year. But we get a few guys from WA, so Tim Manassa and Thomas sort of come most years recently. So we tend to get a good mix of guys that seem to, enjoy it and keep coming back year after year. So I feel like we've sort of had that consistent number.
Retrospectively, have you ever had to defend the PAV? Is there anybody from the eastern states come over?
So technically, we did have a guy from New Zealand, although he was living in Adelaide at the time. So, and he's since gone back to New Zealand, but that's the only New Zealander that we've had attend the tournament. No fly-ins for the tournament itself, other than when we hosted the Ozbowl state champs back in 2013 and had the New Zealanders over for that one.
Well, there's an area for improvement for our Aotearoa listeners. So guys, tell us what are the key details. If you're listening to this podcast and you are thinking, oh, I haven't been to a South Australian tournament yet, or I haven't been to a Southern Strike Bowl yet, what do they need to know to get along to SSB?
So Southern Strike Bowl this year is 12th and 13th of October. So we're as of recording, about 5 or so weeks away, but obviously still time to sign up. If you head to the website, which is off the top of my head, southernstrikebowl.weebly.com, but if you Google Southern Strike Bowl, that's Shrike, not Strike, that'll send you to our website, which has links to the coaches pack and things like that with all the details of how you sign up. Yeah, so we're not far away now, and I think we've had a pretty good reputation for good prizes and player gifts. So every year, every single player that's attended the tournament has gone home with a prize. It's probably something I'm pretty proud of, and we have a player gift pack each year that we design a custom miniature, we've designed custom balls, had other, various custom items. So probably fortunate this year that our player gift miniature that everyone getting is a bull centaur. So with GW announcing Chaos Dwarves as the new team, the timing worked out rather fortunate on that one.
Yeah, very fortuitous. Save you having to invest or sell a small organ to be able to afford the Forge World Bull Centaurs.
Yeah, so we've got Ugni miniatures to custom sculpt a bull centaur, and then this was all done before we even knew about it. We got an alternate version made up as well, so people would have a pair of bull centaurs that they could have. So yeah, with the box set of Chaos Dwarves not having bull centaurs in them, there may be people looking for alternate versions, and we will have a couple available. But yeah, if you come along to the tournament, you get a bull centaur just for playing. So
better incentive do you need to sign up?
Can't be that value.
I'm saying what better incentive than to sign up and get that bull. While we're on that, I need to find out how do you pick or work out who's going to be the MVP or the new miniature for next year. Like I've just recently done a beach bowl tournament where I had a single lineman earning star player points throughout the tournament, and whoever earned the most got award with the big kahuna, which I'll make a new miniature next year. But how do you guys go about that?
The beauty of democracy.
Yeah, so
they vote. After every game, you give votes to the opposing players. Are we still at top 3? Or
no,
are we
best,
going down
best
to top
two.
2? Best 2. Top 3 was a bit cumbersome. Give them the best, whoever was most impactful. So we want to make sure that people aren't influencing, going, oh yeah, this guy was the best one. Vote for my guy here. We want to make sure it is entirely from
based on
a
what happens
legit-
on the field.
Yeah. And some people, I'm not going to say it was me, but it was definitely me, have set up rosters where I go, this guy is going to be my playmaker every year. And he fails in game 2 and I lose. But other people are a lot more successful and they get it all the way through. And that playmaker can sometimes be really successful. We've had a few people get it a couple of times. And
Yes,
they're usually
Casper.
at a high... Shut up. I was thinking about someone else. Thank you very much. I've only gotten 2.
Yes.
There's someone with 3, right? Who got 3?
There are 2 people with 2. You and Nathan are the only ones to have won it twice. So Casper had a Dark Elf Renegade on a Chaos Renegades team win it, and had a Lizardman Saurus on a Lizardman team win the MVP. Did they get max votes both times?
I think I've got a.
Yeah, I don't think Malice, the elf, got full. No, they both got full votes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happens when you let one player do everything.
Yeah, and I think it had a
I've
particularly
actually got a copy of that one.
Is it true that it had a particularly ugly face because it was designed to look a little bit like Casper? Is this truth?
Not really. The elf had its own proper elfy face, but there may have been a public outcry that the elf didn't have big sideburns like I had at the time. So we had to sculpt an alternate head, which may have been a little bit uglier, that had sideburns and looked like my.
Yeah, so the other thing to bury the lead a little bit, yes. So if your player wins the MVP, they do get that mini sculpted up, and so you get to help design it. The other thing we do is change the meta up each year. So whatever mini is the MVP, the skills that player got during the tournament are used as the basis for a star player, and that star player can then be taken on any single team at the following Southern Strike Bowl. So, for example, at this year's Strike Bowl, you might have a High Elf team that can take a Bull Centaur that will have block and horns, and I'm trying to think what the other skill they might have had. Is it tackle or disturbing presence? I'm trying to think what the other.
She had sprint, sure feet, thick skull, block, mighty blow +1, horns, and fend. All for the low price of 230,000 gold pieces.
Yeah,
That's
so
a bargain.
Also has a special rule as per the current star players, where once per game on a blitz action, you may consider your strength, including horns, to be double that of the player that is the target of the blitz.
So because they can be taken on team of any race, it sort of changes the meta up each year, I guess, because you can get some pretty wacky combinations depending on what the star is. So we did have a gutter runner a couple of years ago as the star player. So you can imagine, you've got a slow team like Dwarves, and suddenly you can burst a gutter runner out of the cage and run down the other end of the field with them. It kind of changes the options available.
Yes, it does. So just clarify for me, because I don't know this. When you're building your team for Southern Strike Bowl, you kind of get a key player or something, do you? That you then build. You can stack skills or something on before you even play a game, or how do you work out who this key playmaker is?
So Southern Strike Bowl has 1.15 million to spend, and then on top of that you get a skill pack. So you can either take 7 what are they called?
Primary skills.
Are they primary skills?
Yep.
4 primary and 2 secondary, or there is 4 primary, 1 secondary, and a movement or armor bonus.
Or
And
passing.
or passing, yep. And then I think it drops down to, is it 4
primary skills and 1
Yeah.
agility plus?
Or 1 strength plus. But the strength or agility can only be taken on, I think, 0 to 12, or is it maybe 0 to 4? But
Agility and strength upgrades may not be given to 0-1 or 0-2 positionals, such as war dancers or big guys.
Yeah, there you go. So the most you can start, and so 1 player can get 2 skills to start with. And then after round 3, we have a skill draft, which is done in reverse order. So the player that is in last place after 3 games gets first pick, and that skill draft has basically 1 of every skill on the board, plus 1 each of the stat upgrades and all the mutations. And so we have 2 rounds of that you can add skills to. So the person that's in last picks first, and then the person that's in first place will pick last, and then you start again at the last place person and move through. So, but the MVP is just the player that performs the best for that team during the tournament. So in some cases, it's been some fairly unusual star players that have just performed out of their skin for those 6 games on that team.
I think the strangest one is probably Caliban, an orc blitzer that has block, shadowing, and tackle, and that's it.
Yeah, like I don't know how he performed so well in 6 games, but he did. So
nice.
And then the star players based on the skills that players actually picked up during the tournament.
Yes. So
an archive of heroes of the past.
Brilliant.
So like I think for one, like we've got, I'm trying to think, is it Mr. Oz that has like piling on and mighty blow?
Mr. Oz is a vampire who has hypnotic gaze, pile driver, jump up, claw, and mighty blow +1.
Yeah, like just, not exactly what you would expect, but that's what ended up being the MVP.
Okay, so here's a question for our listeners globally. Is there any copies of these MVP miniatures still available? And also, can we post some pictures of past MVP miniatures on our Down Underworld Denizens Facebook page?
Yes and yes. So I believe all of them are still available, other than the very original MVP, which is the Orc Thrower Defetcher that was on my winning team. That was back when we didn't actually have a system set up for determining the MVP. So me as the tournament winner basically got to allocate it to one of the players on my team by default before we came up with an actual system of how to determine this. But I believe 3 of them are available through Impact Miniatures. So there is Vlad, which is the Minotaur.
Chaos Renegade Minotaur.
Yep. We have Mutton McGee, which is a Chaos Renegade Ogre. And we have Malice, which is the Chaos Renegade Dark Elf.
Dark Elf, yeah.
We were going through a phase. They are literally 2012, 2013, 2014.
Where Chaos Renegade just seemed to be the flavor of the week, or the 3 years.
I will say, I probably have maybe 15 Minotaurs in my personal Blood Bowl collection, and my Southern Shrike Bowl Minotaur is actually the favorite sculpt of all of them, GW included. Like, I actually think it is an absolutely brilliant sculpt. When I saw it, I just had to have one.
All of those were sculpted by Pedro Ramos, who is a magnificent sculptor. So, still sculpting by hand out there. You would have seen him on various Facebook groups, but absolutely beautiful miniatures. So they're available from Impact. The rest of them are available through Southern Strike Bowl. If I was actually good at marketing and advertising, people would know that they're available, but because I'm just really, really bad at that, I just make them and have copies sitting in my garage unsold because I don't actually let people know that, hey, you can purchase these. But we have moved on to 3D sculpting them now and 3D printing them. So the last 3 or 4 miniatures have been sculpted through Agni Miniatures. Once again, fantastic sculptor, highly recommend him. But yeah, so then we print them and sell them ourselves.
Yeah, just to absolutely.
Those will be the last 3.
Go on.
That'll be
Go on, Casper.
Butterfingers, the Gutter Runner, Mezcal, the Lizard Mansaurus, and Asoria Noi, the Slan Catcher.
And then Razshell Bonebreaker, I think, is last year's MVP that is available this year.
Yeah, and you can get a variant of her and have therefore 2 bulls.
Yes.
And so if people are super keen on the bulls, obviously top thing is get along to Southern Strike Bowl. If that's an impossibility, will they be available after Southern Strike Bowl if there are any left? Is that how that's going?
Yes, there will. And through the beauty of 3D printing, they will be available because we can print as many as we need.
We control the means of production.
I just want to affirm 2 things you said. The first is that Pedro Ramos is an absolute fantastic. He's very old school in his sculpting, and that he hand sculpts his miniatures if that's the component he's doing rather than just concept art, because he does both. But his gnome team, I think, is going to be on a Kickstarter very soon. I've seen the greens for that gnome team. They're basically all going to be ready to cast when that Kickstarter goes live, so stay tuned for that. Also, I just wanted to absolutely back up what you're saying about Ivan Agnachev, aka Agni Miniatures. Mrs. Davy Jones, our exclusive miniature for Great Barrier Biff II, was a custom sculpt through Agni. So, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I've worked with both Pedro Ramos. We worked with him for several years for the various Southern Strike Bowl MVPs, and then now that we've moved to 3D printing, we've worked with Ivan for a few years now, and couldn't speak more highly of both of them.
I was busy looking at the coaches pack for the Southern Strike Bowl and looking at all the cool stuff.
I have to admit, while you were talking about what's eligible for the stat improvement, I was like, human blitzers can be strength increased. My cane toad cup roster might work.
I was just going to ask, how do you feel about the look of the coaches pack? Adam's been stretching our comfort zone, and we think this looks like a really nice purple and orange, a bit of grey mixed in to really represent the color schemes that they had for last year. Those of you who are just listening, you should probably jump onto that website and have a look at yourself. But what are your thoughts on the graphical representation of the coaches pack?
I really like it. It's very nicely colorful, but it still makes it very easy to read. All the important details are easy to find. So it's a very nicely presented pack, I have to say.
Yes, and thanks can go out to Brett Whitaker from Blue Cookie Business Services for that coaches pack, who, has very good graphical design skills, much, much better than myself, that looked like someone had been messing around with Word, because that's what I had been doing for previous coaches packs. So,
and if I'm right, his NAF name is Shindex.
Sinister Dexter. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. But yes, it's nice when someone that actually knows what they're doing puts it together and can make it look much nicer than I could myself.
Excellent. Is there anything we've missed from South Australian Blood Bowl that needs to be spoken about, or is there anything else you wanted to make a brief mention of?
I don't think so. The only other thing I would say is would love to see some more coaches coming on Southern Strike Bowl. So, if you've been thinking about it in the past, now is a great time to do it. We're 5 weeks away, so still time to sign up. And for those South Australian coaches out there that may be thinking of organising their own tournament, we're putting together the 2025 sort of tournament schedule. So there are a few keen people out there looking to run their own tournaments. Get in touch if you're interested, and we can sort of, put together a nice tournament structure, hopefully something like Georgia's set up for New South Wales, and their sort of
tournament series
would be nice. Yes.
Yeah,
He's done a
brilliant.
great job with that. So if we could get something like that.
Yeah, the sincerest form of flattery is imitation. Queensland's planning to run a tournament series in 2025, both for 7s and for 11s. So, yeah.
I mean, anything that gets more people attending Blood Bowl tournaments, I'm all for, and anything that gets people other than me organising Blood Bowl tournaments, I'm also all for.
Oh, but I thought you were a sadist and you enjoyed these things.
It is nice to go to a tournament where you just get to play rather than try and do both at the same time.
That'd be a masochist, Babs. A sadist likes inflicting pain on other
Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong way around. Yep. Yeah, okay, righto. I've got one
To be
final
fair-
question. And go on, Casper.
He does like being in control of his own pain. So he is a bit of S&M.
I'm staying well away from there. I've got a final question for you. And I thought of this as you were talking. And maybe it's going to be for the 20th year. I don't know, but will there ever be a Southern Strike Bowl All-Stars where coaches can take any of the previous MVPs?
Yes, I would say that is highly likely. So for our 10th year, we did that, where I upped the amount for each team to 1.2 million and made it mandatory that you had to take a Southern Strike Bowl star player on your team, and opened them up to any star player being able to be taken on any team. So I could see for our 20th year doing the same, and at that point having that would be 19 different stars, or sorry, it would be 20, because we also have the Shrike that we created and started up as a star player. I can imagine the power gamers going absolutely nuts with all the possibilities of broken combinations you could put together from that. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have the Southern Shrike in my Blood Bowl collection. He plays for my Down Underworld Creatures team. So there you go.
That would be an Aussie themed.
Yes, it would. Yeah, with a lot of Eucalyptus Bowl miniatures in there. I would just like to say thanks so much for coming on, guys. Really appreciate you being able to shed some light on around the grounds around South Australia. For Wilt, anything else you want to say? Mills, you want to say anything else?
No, that's fantastic, guys.
I'll be messaging you afterwards about getting some of those miniatures.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm actually on the website right now looking up all those. I've actually got 5 of them. I've got 5 of them myself.
There you go. Yeah. Excellent. All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Been fantastic.
Yeah. So speaking of the NAF tournament series for next year, so both Babs and I have put our hands up to run those. Babs is going to run the 11s tournament series, and I'll be in charge of the 7s. So one thing we want to get out to our listeners is that in order to be tracked for points throughout the tournament series, you need to be NAF registered, which actually, as of the Beach Party Rumble being the very first Queensland NAF tournament to be, Queensland NAF ranked tournament that had completely 100% NAF ranked members. So hopefully this continues from there. But we know that some people will be playing 2 tournaments in a row, but Beach Party Rumble did pip you by 1.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah, look, I think don't begrudge it. Like, I think what you got to understand is the NAF are effectively supporting the tournament series financially. It's in one sense, it's no different to Games Workshop saying you need Games Workshop miniatures to play in Games Workshop run Blood Bowl tournaments. It's the same kind of deal. Now, that's not going to exclude you if you're not a NAF member and there's a reason that you don't want to be a NAF member, and I don't want to argue with you about that. If you choose not to be a NAF member, that's up to you. But you can still come and play. You can still play in all the tournaments. There's no problem with that. We're not excluding you for that reason. It just means that you won't get the points and be on the table, on the ranked table. That's all it means. So, it doesn't actually mean you can't play. It doesn't actually mean you can't be a part of it. You absolutely can. It just means your points won't get ranked and you won't be eligible for the pins as a result.
Yeah, and I'd encourage people, if they're looking at coming at one of these tournaments, because we'll have a proposed schedule for those, that you can't actually retroactively do it. So if you've gone to 2 tournaments and went, oh wow, I like this, and then you join NAF, we can't actually go back in retrospect and reinstate your results from those first 2 tournaments. So if you're listening and you're thinking of doing the whole series, it's here in Australia, it's $15 dues. You get 2 NAF dice, a NAF token, and all your results get recorded.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it supports Blood Bowl tournaments as a result. Like your funds actually go to supporting Blood Bowl. So what's not to love about that?
Yeah. Now,
so stay tuned. First tournament off the rank. First tournament will be the first tournament of 2025. We're yet to get it formally approved by the NAF to be a tournament series, because one of their requirements is that the first tournament of the tournament series has to be already an approved NAF tournament at the time. And the one that in Queensland that's going to be the first NAF tournament in our tournament series is the Brisbane City Bash. Both the 7s and the 11s variant will be, or version will be, the first tournament in the tournament series. So as soon as that gets NAF, and I might have to give Gillian at Vault Games a little bit of a poke to get that along, but as soon as that happens, then we can formally get NAF. I have talked to the NAF coordinator of all the tournament series across the globe, and he has already verbally said it won't be a problem. So that's good.
Yeah, and just what have they got to look forward to? I know in the 7s we've got 6 tournaments tentatively booked in. We've got 3 here in the southern part of Queensland, and we've also got 3 up in north. So, and with the top 3 points scoring counting towards your ranking, I like the idea that there's 3 up north, there's 3 down south. So, you don't just, if you live up north and you only do 1 tournament and there's no more up here. No, there's going to be 3 for you up there. Hopefully, we get some people, crossing our state and going up or down. I know I'm going to try and get to at least one of them up north. For my 7 series.
Yeah, well, and I think I don't want to think any less of the 7s. It's definitely 7s is a different kettle of fish, particularly if you're talking the 2 setups with a bit of a no man's land in the middle. I think that has a different way of playing to traditional Blood Bowl with only 1 line of scrimmage. But the 11s events is going to be Brisbane City Bash in the 22nd and 23rd of February next year. Cane Toad Cup on the 5th and 6th of April. Sunny Coast Slam, we don't 100% know the date, although last I spoke to Dave Lieber, that's going to be August. Fumble in the Jungle, June 28 and 29. Townsville are going to host their first tournament. It's going to be in the series. And then the Big Ipswich, probably late October to be confirmed. And that's it for our 11 series. Running down the 7 series, we've got the Brisbane City Bash 7s, which will be one of the evenings. We've got not 100% confirmed, but there's discussion about whether the Hooligan Gutter Bowl variant will be included in that, if that goes ahead in Cairns in April. Sunny Coast Slam are talking about whether they may have a variant run alongside Sunny Coast Slam, like a 7s variant. I'm planning myself to run a little thing. Don't really want to make a big deal, just pretty little in 2025, because I'm a masochist too. Is that the right term? Wilt, did I get that right? Sometime in May, Rob from Millennium Comics twisted my arm to run something at Millennium next year, as well as the Tournament of Champions the year after. So I acquiesced to his request and said I'd run a 7s event at Millennium in May. In addition to that, we're going to have the sevens for the Switch sevens for Big Ipswich. The charity sevens is not going to be a part of the seven series. That's an intentional decision by Lee Hobbins. He does not want the charity sevens to be competitive, and so he does not want to be part of the series. But we still want to support it immensely. So instead of that, we've decided to have what I believe might even be Australia's first ever 2-day sevens event. Millsy, what's that one?
It's going to be the Bundy Rumble. So following on from the success of the Beach Party Rumble, because I live here in Bundaberg and people worldwide will know about Bundaberg rum. So we're going to be called the Bundy Rumble and have a massive 2-day sevens beach bowl tournament. We also have.
So you can see why we've split it into 2 separate tournament series. I mean, far out. How many events is that? A bazillion?
Townsville is also looking at doing a sevens event next year as well. So, there's going to be quite a few. Fumble in the Jungle are also looking at doing one in Cairns over the Fumble of the Jungle weekend. So potentially 7 at the moment. Sevens events going ahead.
I think it's way more than 7 sevens. We got, I'll do the number crunching. But
there are multiple different variants of sevens. Like I said, I'm doing Beach Bowl. I know the Switch sevens down at the Ipswich event uses the Oz sevens, which is like a full length 11s pitch, but a sevens pitch width with a single line of scrimmage. I know Dylan at Brisbane City Bash is straight up GW sevens. You've talked about Gutter Bowl, so there's quite a number of different variants of sevens as well. And
mate, you're going to be a pig in mud
hosting one in Rockhampton. Sorry,
you're going to be a pig in mud with all these variants.
I am loving it. I've already talked about I need to cut down my tournaments for the year, but I think I'm up to 7 at least now with those.
Is that like you quitting your cigarette? Is that like you quitting your cigarette habit? You got to cut down, but actually it ends up going the opposite way.
Just go the other way, yeah. Why not?
But look, my variant that I'm running in May will actually be every single variant all in one venue. That you bring one team, so you bring a sevens team, but you potentially are going to play any of something like 10 different variants on the day, and you randomly get assigned which variant you're playing on which table with a fairly standardized set of rules across it. But you bring the one team and you might suddenly be playing Dungeon Bowl sevens, and then the next round you might be playing Ridge Bowl. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm doing in May.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about our competition time. We love a good giveaway. Aussies have something in common with several other cultures in that we love a good freebie. And so let's talk about our competition. We've had a contest where what we wanted was somebody to come up with the stat line, the special skill, and the backstory for Mrs. Davy Jones. We put that up on our Facebook group, and it was actually delightful to see that just this week there's been a bit of a resurgence in entries and some really good discussion going on. What I've really loved is seeing somebody post something up, and then there's been a bit of a discussion about how balanced is this, and do we like it, do we not? What would we tweak about it? And people taking that feedback on board. So it's been great to see a bunch of our listeners engaging with one another in what they propose and what they suggest and what they think is right for Mrs. Davy Jones.
Yeah, I like the fact that it was feedback too. They weren't no one slammed someone for doing this or that. It was good, honest, open feedback and open discussion about it. So that's another thing, a feather in our cap for the Down Under World denizens, that we play nicely with each other.
Well, depends how you consider nicely, but certainly if it's not within the rules of the game on the board with your miniatures, then sure. If on the other hand it's whether you stick a boot to Griff Overwald, well, there's shame if you don't. Let's be honest. So
Griff has it coming.
Absolutely. The best Griff is a zombie Griff. Anyway, let's talk winners. Mrs. Davy Jones. So Wilts, why don't you tell us which Mrs. Davy Jones, in your opinion, was the best?
So they're all really good options there. I do especially like that a lot of guys went into background detail and came up with the backstory for it as well. Just purely based on the actual rules, though, I'd have to give it to Andrew Laidlaw-Jones, my pick for number one spot. But special mention does go to Arlo with his Call of the Deep special rule for the first time a Bloodlust roll has failed, getting a bonus to the stat line for the rest of the game. That's a really cool option.
Yeah, I loved it. I got a bit freaked out because our first entry was Andrew Laidlaw-Jones, and he actually went and like fully graphically designed the card and had a picture of Mrs. Davy Jones and had all the stats looking just like if it was a GW card. I was like, I better explain. Not everybody needs to do that because I don't want to scare everybody off from entering. So yeah, hats off to him. Brilliant card. What are you, Milsey? Who do you think was the best Mrs. Davy Jones?
Well, just like Wilkes, I loved all of them. I think, yeah, in all honesty, I think Andrew Laidlaw-Jones got my vote as well. He put it on a card. He even renamed her to Black Eyed Susan. However, my favourite out of all of the special rules was actually from Tom Killingbeck. His special rule was everything's a weapon. So if Mrs. Davy Jones performs a block as part of a block or a blitz action while holding the ball, she gains +1 strength for the action. I like that nice little added touch.
It definitely pushes you to make that star player the ball carrier. That's for sure. I mean, +1 strength. That's huge. Yeah, I must admit, I thought there was a lot of really, really good entrants. I just want to affirm what everybody said. I actually had a hard time trying to split them. So the way I'm picking a winner is actually what Millsy said was going to be the tiebreaker originally. Well, I'm actually using that as my primary splitter. I'm actually going with the backstory. I actually thought, okay, who's really captured who Mrs. Davy Jones is in the lore? And so my vote goes to Arlo Armstrong. I just thought the way he described Mrs. Davy Jones as somebody who'd been a victim and been dragged to the depths, and now she does exactly the same to her victims. That using actual animals as descriptors of how Mrs. Davy Jones operates, like a mutton fish and so on. I thought was just really, really well done. I thought, I really liked the backstory. Well done, Arlo. But we had such a hard time picking a winner. We thought it was so good. We're going to be, I don't know, a little bit un-Australian and not just pick the winner. We're actually going to give everybody who entered a Mrs. Davy Jones miniature and base. We thought, you know what, why don't we just give everybody one? And that is in part due to the absolute generosity of Jester Prince. They oversupplied the Great Barrier Biff II with a bunch of things, which was amazing, really, really helpful for that tournament, and helped this competition. So we're going to give one copy of Mrs. Davy Jones to each of our competition entrants. So if you entered that competition, I'm sorry, now is too late. You can't just jump on and add it now. But if you did already enter at the time of recording, then you will have a Mrs. Davy Jones winging your way to you by some method. Hopefully that method is we get to see each other in person at a tournament and I can just hand it over. But if that's not possible, then we'll work out some way to get it to you. If you're within Australia, postage can be covered as part of the prize. If, on the other hand, you're overseas, then we'll have to work out some way to get it to you. Millsy, you loved it so much. You got something else for us?
Cool. I certainly do. Moving on from that competition, we've got another one. So speaking of being oversupplied, when we, you might have heard in our previous episodes, doing our Down Underworld draft event, and Tats Tabletop came on board and supplied us with just a bucket load of miniatures and teams and so on. So we do actually have some spares out of those things that we didn't, out of those teams that we didn't actually draft. And I mentioned this to Chris and I said, mate, you've given us too much. And he said, look, I'm happy for you to forward them on as competition prizes, as, prizes at tournaments and so on. So, so special shout out to Tats Tabletop for this one. So we've actually got, with Chaos Dwarves just dropping a few days ago, we do have the Reiko Vendetta Minotaur, and we'll put a picture up of that on our Facebook page for you to have a look at. So we do only have one. we can't do multiple Mrs. Davy Jones style competition winners, so we do only have one. But I'd like you to design a star player minotaur that plays for the favourite of Hashut. So it's going to play for Chaos Dwarf team only. Come up with your craziest or best stat line, backstory. We already heard the backstory went really well for Mrs. Davy Jones. So come up with whatever you've got, post it up on our Facebook page, and we'll draw a winner before our next podcast.
Yeah, excellent. And that winner will get that Minotaur miniature.
Yes, they certainly will.
But we have to pick a winner for this one. Fantastic. All right. And, what timing? Minotaur. Perfect for your up-and-coming Chaos Dwarf team. Want to talk briefly about our Aussieisms, our Australian sayings that we say just as a matter of speaking. In fact, in between recording segments, I actually heard Millsy use an Australianism I haven't heard in a long time. He said, by a country mile. Dieter Hammerslash, we want to close out the competition for that. And unfortunately, somebody did actually run away with this one and win by a country mile. Mills, do you want to talk us briefly about Dieter?
I can talk to you about Dieter. I don't want to talk to you about the winner. Once again, it wasn't myself. And by a country mile, Wilt's got the vote with 65% of your listener votes. So well done to Wilt's. We'll have to think of a new one to come up with so I can win that one.
2-0. Oh, Wilt's, you're killing us.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing that. You might be killing yourselves more to the point.
Well, I don't know, maybe, but it goes to show that's one of the advantages of you being on the podcast, right? You know the rules, you know how to tweak the rules, you know how to design a good star. Well done, mate. Well done. 65% of the vote, up from 45 last time being the winner. 65 this time. We were just in it to make up the numbers. I think Millsy.
I got one vote. That was my own.
Well, got to back yourself. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep talking about Australianisms, not just country miles. We want to throw every now and then a little segment in, just explaining some of Australian slang. Australian slang is also called strine, and what we want to do is talk about a piece of strine and how it applies to Blood Bowl. Millsy, we've talked about this. The Australianism, launch it at us. What is the phrase we say as Aussies?
She'll be right, mate.
And what does it mean?
Well, it means pretty much that. She'll be right, but she'll be okay. Everything will be good. And it's usually used when something calamitous has maybe happened. You're looking at something as a bit of a disaster, and they've got a larrikin way of looking at things. You go, she'll be right, mate. We'll get on with it. We'll do it.
Nice. So one of the questions we want to ask in this segment is, how can you use that saying in a game of Blood Bowl? So I thought we'd go around and explain that. I might kick off. You're in a game, and you've spent a ridiculous amount of star player points and gold to recruit Zolcath the Zoat, and on your Elven Union team. Your Elven Union team is being decimated, and then Zolcath gets injured. All right, injury roll's made. What do you say? She'll be right, mate. You roll regen, goes straight to reserve, comes back on next drive, right? So there's a use of she'll be right, mate. What about you, Wilt? So you got an example where you might use she'll be right, mate, in a game of Blood Bowl?
Oh, there's so many examples. Like if you have a pitch invasion and half your players get knocked down, she'll be right, mate. I've got the one guy back for the ball. That's all that matters. You get the job done. Or
particularly when you slam, and then just boing, 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 score.
Your opponent sets up, and you're receiving the kick, and they roll a blitz. She'll be right, mate. I got plenty of covers.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Millsy, hit us with one.
Now, well, you've actually heard this one, Babs. It was last Monday. We might have met up for a practice game for the big Ipswichki, and I'd built up this star player slant catcher. On turn 2, he went for a leap, rolled a 1. She'll be right. Rolled a re-roll, got it. Went for a dodge, rolled a 1. She'll be right. He's got dodge, rolled a 1. Tripped over. 10 for injury, 10 for armour, 12 for casualty. He's gone. Don't have him left for the rest of the game. She'll be right. I got 11 other frogs. I can go.
Love it. And it is that. It's that part of Australian culture is the ability for us to weather the storm and not be succumbed to be feeling overwhelmed or like you can't cope. We just muck in. And I think that particularly plays out in Australian culture in terms of when we have to go to war. I mean, war is never something you want to do, but when you have to, when Australian forces go to war, they are among the most respected military forces on the planet. In fact, I believe there's a famous quote by one of the German generals in World War II. He basically said, "Give me a battalion of Australian soldiers, and I will give you the world." That was the enemy's opinion of how good Aussie soldiers were. Is it doesn't matter what gets thrown at you. She'll be right, mate. We'll just keep going. Anything else you want to say about she'll be right, mate?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it's kind of close to no worries. You kind of use both of them in the same go. No worries, she'll be right.
Yeah, you can. That's true. I guess you could say both. A bit of a tautology, but Australians are pretty good at that. I've got something I've got to record. You ready for it? Corn.
That's brilliant. Corn. You might want to do that again.
Leave the team name is not the cornflakes. It's not the corn dogs.
Sorry, Mike, before you go, I just want to cause a bit of controversy here. You're a UK man. I'm sitting here having a cup of tea. I just need to know, is it hot water first or milk first?
Oh, it's absolutely hot water, as hot as you can get it. Otherwise, it's not a proper cup of tea.
What kind of person pours in their milk before the water?
Oh, I've heard people do it.
Some people do it, but we don't talk about them.
Just go back to our roots, Millsy. You boil the billy, right? It's the hot water first.
Boil the billy first, and then.
Alrighty, we are here at the Great Barrier Biff II. We've just completed round 2. Talking to Lukey Honeybrook. How'd it go?
Oh, super fun. Got it handed to me though.
What are you playing this tournament?
I'm taking Dark Elves at the moment.
Ooh, darkies. So you've had it handed to you a couple of times or just once?
Just the last one, yeah. I got schooled.
Yeah, it happens. But got to say, how's the venue here? What's it like? Describe it to our viewers.
Okay. There's a few bikinis getting around in this tropical climate. It's not me with a bikini, but there's a few girls getting around.
Yeah, no, it's just this fantastic event. And we might chat to Lukey at the end of this tournament when he's won it.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No worries. Cheers. Thanks, Lukey.
Cheers, thank you, Millsy.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Down Underworld Denizens discusses games, workshops, games and products such as Blood Bowl, Gutter Bowl, Dungeon Bowl and Crunch. We also discuss other fantasy football board games and concepts from other companies such as Dread Ball, Guild Ball, Grind, Elf Ball, Myth and Goal, Blitz Bowl, Chaos Ball, Monsters of the Midway and Feud Ball. We discuss products and services such as miniatures or software made by producers suitable for several of these board games. Games Workshop terms and conditions in point 2.1 state they grant the user the non-exclusive right to use their authorised intellectual property for broadcasting and other media-related activities such as commentary and opinion pieces, blogs and other similar informational and descriptive purposes. Down Underworld Denizens respects and honours these terms.